Welcome back to the HPP podcast, or HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today I am joined by Jake Copestick, and if any of you have ever taken roadkill and put it in your microwave, now you can imagine that's what Jake looks like right now. Jake has been working super long hours for the University of Pennsylvania football team, and I had to basically drag him out of bed to do this show, but he's here. He's braving it out. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm tired. It's football season. We're in the middle of training camp. It's hot. I'm getting a little sunburn, but I'm here to talk some college hoops. I'm still alive to tell the tale. So let's go ahead and take my mind off of college football, where my mind is just
right. Well, actually,
on end of the day.
Our first topic in the college hoops notebook is football. And the reason why it's football is because of realignment. And Chip Kelly came up with a great idea. And I don't know why, well, maybe other people have said it. He was the first person I heard propose it. He said, why don't we all become Notre Dame? And in the article by The Athletic, and I don't remember the reporter's name, but he referred to it as amputating football from the rest of college sports. So what Chip Kelly proposed was basically splitting D1 in half, which would be about 64 teams on one side, 64 teams on the other. And basically there'd be two divisions. So really it'd be like creating, so we've always had Division 1, we've always had 1A, and then we had Division 2 and 3. He's talking about having division, I don't know what, Division 3 stars and Division 2 stars. I don't know. But basically he's talking about the SEC, the Big 10, ACC, Big 12, what's left of the Pac-12, forming one big conference and having their own championship. And in other schools, let's say, I don't know, Georgia State, Arkansas State, they would be in the lower tier and they would have their own championship. So I guess the bowl games would be gone. But you know, the reason it is because college basketball coaches, and I sent you the article, Jake, you probably didn't have a chance to read it, but college basketball coaches are not happy with all this realignment for all the reasons that we covered the last time we got together. And the problem is football pays the bills. And so they're saying, at least, which I kind of like, does football really pay the bills at Kansas? University of Kansas, does football pay the bills? Come on.
It depends. It depends where you're at. But now that NIL and big sponsorship deals have become a thing, and the media rights deals, I think there definitely is some validity to football paying your bills, and which trickles down to cover your, swimming and diving.
Right.
And like at Penn, we have fencing that I don't believe every school has, or like rowing.
Oh, no, of course they don't. No. Olympics. So, you're basically talking Olympic sports.
Yeah. So that will cover stuff like that. I had never heard this thrown out there before, and until now. I know I had seen something a few years ago. I think it was from USA Today, where it was basically like you had the top 40 teams in D1 single A form their own division. It was a 40-team conference with 8 divisions of 5 or 5 divisions of 8, and it kind of went like from there, and they just kind of split off to create their own championship. I just think it stinks for everybody involved, and then we're gonna sever the mid-major to low-major schools more so anyway. And to me, here's the thing, Rich. Whenever I see stuff like this, I think of my first thought is always going back to basketball and thinking how the NCAA tournament, which is the most perfect postseason and one of the most perfect things in sports, can be tampered with, can be screwed with. We'll only go Power 5 teams. We'll let 96 teams in. You'll have
No. But see,
like
we're just saying with football. I mean, football is driving all this craziness. And my answer to football would be like, well, I'm not paying for diving. I'm not paying for swimming. Well, great. Then you can't use the University of Michigan logo. Go create your own professional league. That would be my answer. And trust me, you take away the college enthusiasm from college football, and you're left with minor league football.
Essentially what it is, yes.
And people watch it because of the tradition, the lore, the enthusiasm of the student body, the rivalries, which they're eliminating. And so football, if they want to be a part of the university, yeah, you're going to pay the bills. And that's it. And now the only problem is the TV contracts. These TV contracts go out to, anywhere to like 2030 or 2035. So I really like Chip Kelly's idea. Personally, anything to get rid of football, screwing everything else up, screwing up the rivalries and everything else. And what I would suggest is that they realign within. So let's say they do a 64-64 split. I would realign back, having no more than 8 in a conference. So what's 64 divided by? That's 8. 8 divisions of 8, and put them in an area so that Texas plays Oklahoma, Texas plays Texas A&M. Keep the rivalries going, and then you'd have something. I just think football is just driving all the other sports crazy. And if you ever do get a chance to read that article, everything that we talked about in the last episode about realignment, college basketball coaches are saying. Everything we said, they're saying it. And for someone who puts basketball in front of football, and I yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, football, just go do your own thing. Stop messing with our rivalries. Stop messing with, the student athlete and so forth. All right. So let's talk about a boy, a man, I should say. Jeremiah Williams. Jeremiah started off at Temple, went to Iowa State, was injured last year, then got in some trouble in Iowa State. Now, I don't know if we were aware of this. I don't know. Maybe, were you, Jake, when he went to Rutgers, did you know he had pending trouble?
No, this was very recent. This is in the last week that this came out.
I'm quoting here from the story from the Des Moines Register, and Williams has been charged with tampering in the Iowa State gambling probe. I just went through, he made, while at Iowa State, now he did not play because he was out with an injury. He made a total of 15 underage bets. And then, he figured, and this year he transferred to Rutgers, and he figured to have a pretty big role on a Rutgers team that is hurting for bodies. And if he's convicted of this, the charge carries a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison. But see, it seems to me that they caught him with the 15 underage bets, and then he tried to tamper after he was already charged. So a tampering would be like you're underage, you make the bets, but you come to me after you're caught and say, well, hey, Rich, can you say you made those bets through me? That would be tampering, and so that's what I think's happened. So I think he's getting whacked twice. I think he's getting once. They already caught him with the underage bets, but the tampering to me means like he's doing something with a potential witness or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, 100% straight on the details here. I know that just came out. I know there's obviously a huge probe going in Iowa and Iowa State as well. There's actually a former player on or I believe he's still with the team, player on the Denver Broncos from Iowa State, who's now facing these same charges for gambling while he was there. And clearly, this is being taken very, very severely by whether it's the NCAA any outside parties. Like you're looking at Aaron Eulis at Nebraska now from Iowa, who's facing a potential loss of his eligibility. And for a guy like Jeremiah Williams, who has a COVID year, has now a medical red shirt, that could all go out the window.
Yeah, and he was going to play. He was going to play big minutes.
They needed him to, and he was originally committed to Illinois, and then he had pulled out, and now he's at Rutgers, where yes, you're absolutely right. He would have played big minutes, and they just need bodies at this point. They need guards. So potentially a big opportunity squandered here for Jeremiah Williams. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think with the whole gambling thing being relatively new, maybe, this is the NCAA. Like, unfortunately, the NCAA might try and make an example out of guys like him and Aaron Eulis to be like, this is how severe this is.
Yes.
You don't want anybody else to do this. This is not a slap on the wrist. Here are the consequences. You get caught doing this. And unfortunately, a guy like Jeremiah Williams, like that might be his case. And he might lose his eligibility with an opportunity like that in front of him because the NCAA has to put the foot down and say that. And especially in Jersey, too. Jersey's a state where you can't bet on if you're in New Jersey.
No. I can't, like, living in Jersey, I can't bet on Rutgers football, Rutgers basketball. Yeah, I can't. So one good thing is he wasn't playing. Thank God. That's a good thing.
Been more severe, yes.
Right, because players who get caught betting while they're active players, pro teams, if they have any pro potential, pro teams are going to think twice about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know pros aren't as tempted because they get a lot of money, but yeah. So keep in mind, I don't think any of these things have been proven yet. Like, I think these are all charges. These are not, like, he hasn't been convicted of anything. So hopefully it works out. But yeah, come on, kids. Play the sport or bet on it. You can't do both. All right. So Cooper Flagg, the number 2 ranked prospect in the class of 2025, behind Cameron Boozer, has reclassified the 2024. Flagg now likely will overtake Dylan Harper as the number 1 high school recruit in the nation next season, and Duke remains the favorite to land Flagg's commitment. Of course, that's not finalized. Any comments here? We just have a new number 1 in next year's high school class.
I think this was definitely coming. I'll say right now, he's the best high school prospect I've ever seen. Best high school player I've ever seen.
Better than LeBron?
I think this guy's got a chance to be absolutely special. I mean, he's dominating all the postseason circuits. I'm saying for me personally.
Right.
I was 3 years old when the prom was coming. I don't remember anything from that. But yeah, he's absolutely nuts. A freak athlete, a freak mobility wise, can block shots, can rip baseline on you, can take you off the dribble. Like, just had 60 points at a game in Rucker Park, playing against really good competition. By the time he was a senior in high school, it would probably hurt him more than help him the way he'd be dominating the competition.
Right.
I think for a guy like him, he's hungry for that challenge too. So I think there's only a matter of time before it happens. And yeah, I'd love to see the Duke Blue Devils land him. He seems like a Duke player.
Right. Great.
Seems like he look good in blue and white.
Okay. Highly touted international center Ade Mara has signed with UCLA. And interestingly enough, Mac Etienne, who was in the transfer portal right around the same time, announced his commitment to DePaul. So UCLA has a lot of international players, including Mara. And Mac Etienne, who's kind of been languishing on the bench behind a lot of good bigs in UCLA, will get a chance to play a lot at DePaul. So I think it's good news for everybody around. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I want to talk about Mac Etienne for a second. He's actually down to DePaul and LaSalle. LaSalle got an international commit today. They seem to be going also the UCLA route, picking up a lot of international prospects. They weren't able to nail down really any transfers at all. They were able to get one international guy signed this year. They have another guy coming, but they missed out on Mac Etienne. And believe there's a need for him here, even though I think Deshaun Nelson is going to come back for DePaul. Like, I know Mac Etienne's a New York guy. He's real far away from home with UCLA, but still going to play in a very good conference in the Big East. And even on a team like DePaul that is probably still going to be a bottom feeder in the Big East, he'll be able to get some playing time there. But I do think it would have been nice if LaSalle could have got a backup big like Mac Etienne. But then again, Fran Dunphy, doing his thing, got another international guy today.
Right. Some more West Virginia news. Aycock leaves Georgetown for West Virginia. And for you, those not familiar, he started off at Connecticut. He's a very good defender. He's pretty athletic, can shoot a little bit, but that's probably his biggest weakness. Very long. And the problem, I think, he's had, or I guess it's a cook, is how it's pronounced. The problem with the Cook has been injuries. He's really never been able to stay healthy. So he should get a lot of playing time with West Virginia. I probably would have got a lot of playing time at Georgetown too, but I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was, but
yeah, I'm not sure either. But it seems like these guys that like Jordan Brown, like Quinterly, like a Cook, when it's this late in the process, there's not really like an open recruitment. It seems like they kind of know already where they're headed. And my thoughts here more with Georgetown than West Virginia. I think it's probably going to be a rough year for Ed Cooley, year one, Rich.
Yeah.
Don't know how good this team is going to be in the Big East.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I think they're looking at a definite bottom half finish year. They're not going to make the tournament.
Meanwhile, Providence should be a top 25 team, I think. But
they could certainly get there.
Yeah, we'll be previewing the Big East in future weeks. So Kansas, who lost a couple of incoming recruits, added what I'm referring to as mystery man Johnny Furphy. He's an Australian forward wing who impressed at the recent NBA Academy games in Atlanta. And I'll tell you what, all I know is basically what Bill Self and other Kansas people have said about. They say this guy's really athletic. He can play 1 through 5. There's not a lot of information. Google the guy. You won't find much on him. So I don't know if they're blowing smoke up our butt or if he really is as good as they say, but I guess we'll find out. I hadn't had a chance yet to see if I can find any film on the guy, but have you heard anything about Furphy?
No, I think me and you are going to have to schedule a little film session here, and then we can both find out about this guy, because you probably know, or I probably know just as much as you at this point. Right. So yeah, okay. Johnny Furphy film session coming soon, I guess, for the two.
So the NCAA's decision on Memphis forward DeAndre Williams, who's trying to get an extra year of eligibility, will come before the end of the month. I saw that on I believe that was RotoWire or Roto News. And of course they were quoting a Memphis newspaper that's a subscriber only. So I couldn't read the details, but interestingly enough, our next preview, conference previews, not today, but our next ones is going to cover the American Conference. So we might be able to, we'll probably know by then whether DeAndre Williams is going to be playing for Memphis. And interestingly, another player who was looking for an extra year of eligibility was Trey Woodbury of Utah Valley, and we all figured he would get it and then go join his coach Mark Madsen at University of California. Apparently he either didn't get it, or even before the NCAA gave him a decision, he decided to go a different direction, and he has signed with Bros Bamberg of the German BBL. And they, interestingly, I've heard, are thinking about playing him at point guard. Now, he's always been kind of a combo guard, maybe even you might want to call him a point forward. But yeah, they were really high on signing Trey Woodbury, and it's a good place to start, the German BBL. Plenty of players go over there, or at least, occasionally we see a player go over there and then make it into the NBA. So, lastly, Trenton Flowers, who had committed to Louisville, a 5-star guy, at the last minute here now has decided against playing with the Cardinals and will instead play for the Adelaide 36ers in the Australian NBL. And all the quotes and comments that I saw coming from this kid, it all stemmed down to his ability that he was going to be able to play point guard for the 36ers and the Australian NBL, but he wasn't going to be able to do that at Louisville. So go figure. I mean, think about this. Think about this. Louisville and playing at Louisville is like way down below the level that he's going to be playing at the Sixers, the 36ers. So I don't understand why Louisville, if he's such a great point guard, why wouldn't Louisville let him play point guard? This is a little confusing. Also seems a little selfish, him changing his mind at the last minute. You see, Louisville's, left, looking now for a point guard or an extra player. Basically, they lost a scholarship player, a 5-star at that. So, any comments there?
Just on Louisville, in totality here, they did not do anything last year in the transfer portal besides Brendan Huntley Hatfield. That's why they were so bad. They didn't have a creator. They didn't have an initiator besides L. Ellis, who's now gone. I gotta say though, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there's no way they just give Kenny Payne 2 years and then he's done. I think it's looking more and more like that, especially with Trenton Flowers losing a big time 5-star. Even after the year they had, still being able to get big time commits. Still being able to bring guys in, or they brought a couple transfers. I said, okay, like this can work. It's not just going to be a 2-year thing with Kenny Payne, but I think the seat's now even hotter, and they're not going to be good. I still don't think they're going to make the tournament.
Well, yeah, there's two schools of thought here. Either Kenny Payne doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and this kid wanted to play at point guard. This kid's capable of playing at point guard, and Kenny Payne should have had him playing at point guard. Okay? Or the Sixers, or 36ers in Australia, are just like want some new kid to sell tickets, and they, sold him a bill of goods saying, oh, sure, you'll play point guard. It's very rare for 5-star guys, guys like RJ Hampton and guys like that, they usually get limited minutes and they don't play 25, 30 minutes a game, and they rarely start. I mean, LaMelo Ball was a rarity,
Yeah, he also, he was committed to UCLA since the time he was like 13.
Right.
But yeah, isn't it interesting that you're seeing like an AJ Johnson do this as well, and then a Taron Armstrong?
I was going to go over the list. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that this has become like a legitimate option. Like you bring up RJ Hampton, like this is not just the one-time flash in the pan thing. Like this is becoming a legitimately good league that if people don't want to go to college, this is becoming a viable option for them now. And even besides G League Ignite, this is now another thing that can potentially take away from college basketball.
Yeah, and I don't know which is better for them. Honestly, I think in terms of level of play, it's probably about even between the Australian NBL and the G League. Though I think they play a little more defense in Australia, though they play less defense than they do in Spain and France. Australia has a reputation for kind of being wide open basketball, but nobody has wide open basketball as much as the G League. So anyway, I'll just run over all the prospects who have gone the route of going to Australia this year, and this is just American prospects. AJ Sarr, who is probably good chance he's gonna be a lottery pick, a center who played at Overtime Elite. He's from France, but he played at Overtime Elite last season. He's going to be playing for Perth. AJ Johnson, who committed to Texas, is going to Illawarra, and he too has a chance to be a first-round pick, surely a second-round pick in the upcoming draft. Flowers, of course, as I said, Bobby Clipman goes from Wake Forest to Carnes. Taran Armstrong, one of the better passers in the country, is going to Carnes. Sam Menega from Davidson is going to Carnes. And lastly, Josh Banyan from Montana is going to Brisbane. All these guys are on our draft board. Of course, Sarr, AJ Johnson, and Flowers, Clipman, they're all top 100 guys. Well, I don't know. Clipman's, well, he's probably close to being top 100, but the three freshmen definitely are. But all right, so today, what we're going to be doing, we just got through the notebook. We're closing the notebook. We are going to be covering the Ivy League, the Mid-American Conference, and the Missouri Valley Conference. But before we do that, we're going to bring on one of our first guests. That's Matt Allocco from Princeton guard. Now, I talked to Matt a few days ago, so Jake won't be involved in this interview, but we had a great talk with Matt, and we'll roll that interview right now. Our special guest this week is Princeton guard Matt Allocco, who helped the Tigers advance to the Sweet 16 in last year's NCAA tournament, a 2023 All-Ivy selection. Matt averaged 10.7 points, 4.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game with excellent shooting splits, 45% from the floor, 38 from deep, and 74 from the free throw line. He led the Ivy League in minutes played with 1,055, and he also finished in the top 10 of the conference with both win shares and offensive rating. Matt, it's great to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. I'm going to start with an unplanned question. I noticed on Twitter you are followed by Dane Goodwin, and you're also from Ohio. Do you guys know each other?
We do very well. Dane is actually like one of my best friends.
No way.
Yes, I started playing with Dane. Geez, I don't even know. I was maybe second grade, and he was fourth. So we grew up together. We've been playing forever. He's been back in town. Actually, we've been working out together quite a bit.
He's in Jersey.
In Ohio. I'm back
you're in Ohio right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So yeah, we go way back though. We go way back, and we talk all the time still.
Nice. You know, I tried to get him a job with a European team that was looking for a wing who could shoot, and that would be Dane. And I tried to get in touch with him. I didn't have his number, so I went through goodness gracious, Nate Leshevsky. I went through Nate. So I don't know if he ever got the message, but it turned out they signed Justin Suing from Ohio State. So anyway, all right. So let's begin the real interview. We'll start by talking about last postseason. It began in the Ivy League tournament, including a hard-fought win over Yale, you tied for the regular season championship. And then you went on to defeat 2-seed Arizona, 7-seed Missouri to advance to the Sweet 16. Your run ended in Louisville versus Creighton. That was another close contest. So what was last March like, and what are some of your fondest memories of that experience?
Yeah, a lot of the memories outside of the actual games is actually the travel. So we find out where we're going, right? We win against Yale, and then the selection shows that night. And we find out we got to go like further than any team in the tournament, you know.
Sacramento, correct?
Yeah, Sacramento. So like about 3,000 miles away. So we're like, all right, well, we got to pack up because we're leaving at like 8 a.m. tomorrow. But that flight, actually, like we had guys playing cards and everything, and speakers going, music and everything. Just the whole, like, the vibe and the energy and the confidence that team had was really special to be a part of, especially at the end of the season when we had it going. Everyone was playing their best basketball and kind of living and playing confident.
Yeah. So what, I mean, there's got to be some moments that really stick out to you. I mean, Arizona, I don't think anyone saw that coming. You know, Missouri was, a little different animal because they didn't quite have the size that Arizona did. So what were some of the most memorable moments? It's like, you'll always, think about when you're a grandfather and telling your grandchildren.
I'm thinking in that, I mean, there's so many big moments going on too. Yeah, watching film, first of all, right? We get off the bus and then we watch film right away with Arizona, and they're enormous. They got to go in two. They won their conference tournament. They had an All-American in Tbilisi, so and they played fast too. They blew it up the floor, and then they were playing right with those bigs. So we knew, obviously they're 2 seed and they're a top 10 or whatever team they were in the country all year, and rightfully so. They were a great team, and so we knew it was going to be an unbelievable challenge, obviously. But man, our coaches were on the scout. Specifically, a couple of memories I'm thinking of. They had a little bit of a lead in the first half, and then we went on a run, and Tosan had a block, rebounded it, and went coast to coast and dunked it. And then just the roar of the crowd right there was something I'll remember, I think, forever, because that was really the point when everyone started kind of hopping on the bandwagon, I'll say, outside of the ones who were actual Princeton fans. When you're a 15 seed like that, an underdog, everyone in the arena outside of who you're playing against wants you to win.
Right.
So that started to happen, and guys were like, hey, this team can play. Let's get behind them here. And then in the second half, I'd say Cade Pierce's offensive rebound and threw it out to Blake Peters, who, shout out those guys. They had unbelievable March, and the season overall, they were great all year. But, Cade was totally dominant on the boards throughout the tournament. And then obviously everybody knows Blake Peters. He came in and made big shots all year. So he hit a big three, and then again, that was kind of our big run in the second half where the crowd really got behind us and was going nuts.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, those in particular really stand out.
Okay. So since then, you said you've been working out with Dane. What else have you been up to? I'm sure the media surrounded you then to now must seem like light years away. I bet you at the time you were like, "Oh my God, this is overwhelming," and now probably everything is like crickets again.
A little. Yeah. Compared to that time, absolutely, it was
right.
Maybe I guess people would say we're kind of the talk of the tournament. That Cinderella team at the time. So. We win our first 2 games, and then we get back to school, and there was a whole bunch of media and TV and, news outlets at our practice and people on campus. So, people who I had known kind of, but they were like, hey, you're on the basketball team. Congrats. Keep it going. People who typically I wouldn't hear that from. So that was all great. The support was unbelievable. But like you said, since then, I'd say it's died down a little bit, especially since the season ended.
So what have you been up to beside, obviously working out?
That's a lot of what I'm doing, is getting in the gym, preparing for next season. Working, lifting, getting in the gym a little bit. I'll speak for a lot of my teammates as well. We've been in contact with each other. We're a little different than a lot of schools in America, as we don't have summer school and summer workouts together. So
right.
Everyone's kind of been on our own. But I think this team is, I've been blessed the last couple of years to just be a part of a program that's so connected with each other. And even when we're apart from each other, I know guys are still, people are flying across the country to see teammates and when they're free, and I know we're on the phone, calling, texting each other all the time. So, I'll speak to them as well. I know we got a group of guys who have been getting after it this summer and preparing for the winter as well.
Is that an Ivy League thing?
I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you, Another unplanned question. Ivy League, do they have NIL?
They do. They do.
Oh, okay.
I would say, I don't, it's a tough question. I don't know much about it, I'll say.
Okay. Well,
But
the reason I ask is Stanford and Cal were resistant at first, and I assumed it was because they were following your model, your league's model.
yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say resistant. I think, our athletic department has been extremely supportive of us. I'll say Mr. John Mack, our athletic director, he's talked to us about some NIL deals, and we've had people come in, and we have like this kind of app designed to help, endorse ourselves. And then if, businesses or whoever want to reach out, it's kind of a platform that's easier for them to reach out to us. So, I would say that they allow you for sure to promote yourself, I would say. But I think, they've done a decent job of helping guide us and everything, because I don't, it's a big part of college athletics now. So
right.
yeah,
I just know that the Ivy League does certain things differently than all other schools. So I just wondered if okay. All right, we'll move on. So we'll talk about you personally. For your college career, you've shot better than 40% from deep. Last season, you ranked at the 81st percentile for points per shot as a jump shooter. Are there any particular aspects of your game that you've been working on this off season?
I mean, you obviously want to work on it all, right?
Right.
And just strengthen everything. I don't, in particular, I don't know. I would say maybe just, reps, catching and shooting, and off the dribble more too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say just trying to be more creative a little bit, creating different shots and getting to different spots, and then just practicing all different kinds of shots. Like people are really big and really athletic, everyone across the country, a lot of people can play. So, you got to find different ways to get tough buckets. So,
right.
I would just say that, trying to be more creative and just have every kind of shot in my game, I would say. Okay.
I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but when I watch you play, it's, I don't want to say unorthodox, but there's a little, your game is kind of like quick stop start, kind of, I hate to use this expression, but it's a little herky jerky that seems to throw people off. You don't make moves that, like, in your brain when you're watching, it's like, okay, he's going to do this. You don't, and do you ever, anyone else ever describe your game like that?
I mean, I just feel like that's a big part of the game. I mean, I grew up, I would say even now, like, I'm not going to say I'm a bad athlete by any means, but there's people who are bigger, stronger, and way faster. So, I've been playing for my dad my whole life. He's been my coach growing up, and he would always say basketball is a game of deception. So he's like, start and stop, you got to change pace for sure. And then, shoot it when they think you're going to pass it when they think you're going to shoot it. So just stuff like that. I've tried to kind of embody that change of pace a little bit. So it might be unorthodox, I don't know, to people watching.
I wouldn't say that. It's just you don't, it's just not predictable. I don't know how to describe it. We'd probably have to sit down and watch tape, and I could say, see, you did it that, and I didn't expect you to do that, but yeah. All right. So I'm not crazy.
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, change it. I would say, people even in the NBA, all these great players who are, supreme athletes and really fast, but if they played at one speed the whole time, then I think it would be pretty guardable. So I think all the, the really good players have a change of pace. So I've tried to kind of add that to my game a little bit.
Right, right. So you talked about your dad coaching. You also are now coached by Mitch Henderson, and he's won nearly 70% of his Ivy League games at Princeton. Mm-hmm. So what's it like to play for him?
It's been great. It's been great. Coach gave me a unbelievable opportunity. He said, we want you here. And I was like, I'm in, and he showed me all the right stuff. He's like, look, we're going to compete and play tough. And I mean, I was like, that's all, someone like me wants to hear. Like, I don't need to hear like, we're going to put the ball in your hands for 40 minutes and you can take all these shots. He's like, no, like, we're going to play hard and we're going to win with you. And I was like, I'm in. So I would say we're kind of wired the same way like that. It's not always going to look perfect, but as long as your team is winning at the end of the game, that's all that matters. So I think that's how both of our mindsets are. And then he's done in our staff as well a great job of recruiting people like that as well. I think about everyone on our team, like we could care less about who scores 25 or 30 points as long as Princeton is winning at the end of the game.
Right. And that was obvious in the tournament. Yeah. So let's talk about the team a little. You mentioned Caden Pierce, freshman of the year in the Ivy League. He comes back. Blake comes back, as you mentioned. Zaven Lee comes back. Zach Martini. All those guys are returning. And Coach Henderson said after the Penn game in the Ivy League tournament that Pierce, Cade, was one of the best rebounders he's ever coached. Now, for those who don't know, I don't think Cade is any more than 6'7", maybe 6'6", in that range, right?
I would say about 6'6", yeah.
Yeah, right. So he called him one of the best rebounders he's ever coached. So I wanted to ask you, at what point Cade's freshman season did you say to yourself, man, this guy can play?
Early on for sure. I would say like we didn't meet until my sophomore year. I was his host. So I'm going to pat myself on the back right there. I say I helped out a little bit with that and it worked out. But early on, man, our workouts, as soon as we got on campus, I mean, he was competitive from the jump. So, but yeah, I would back Coach Henderson on that. He's arguably the best rebounder I've played with, and just his, grittiness and his pursuit of the basketball is unique. And he's just got a nose for it. It just seems to bounce his way all the time, but man, he goes and gets it. It's impressive to watch.
Yes.
To be a part of it. Geez, you got all the confidence in the world, because if I shoot it and I miss it, Cade's probably going to go get it. So,
right. That's a nice luxury.
Yeah. He's unbelievable like that.
So let's talk about, this offseason, the Tigers lost Tosan Awama to the pros, and Ryan Langbird and Keyshawn Kellman were grad transfers. By the way, there's an example, folks, of Ivy League rules. They had to leave. So they didn't have a choice. So at the same time, you guys added the highest ranked freshman recruit in the Ivy League in Dalen Davis. So these changes bring several questions to mind. Foremost, how do you replace the size of Woma and Kellman?
I'm not sure. You can't replace, that type, just those guys. It's hard to replace. So unique. And just unbelievable teammates. You can't replace guys like Tosan and Keyshawn just because of, just the support they bring and just the love they have for everybody, the passion for the game. So, aside from them being great players, obviously, but, we'll see, as the year goes on, we'll see. Because, I think we probably won't be as big, but we got a tough group, and I think toughness and competitive competitiveness will take you a long way. And we got guys like that. I think we got to stay true to that. And we got some young guys coming in who are, I think, built the same way, have that same kind of mindset, and hopefully guys who have been through it, myself included. And I'll mention Zach, who's our other senior, is, hopefully going to lead them and take them with us and do our best to, I don't want to say replace, because I have great appreciation for our teammates who just graduated, but just try and kind of fill that gap a little bit.
Right. I just wondered if there was someone incoming that, maybe would give you, some rebounding rim protection that maybe I wasn't aware of, that wasn't already on, like an incoming freshman. I mean, Dalen is the only one I'm aware of. But so do you know of anybody who's coming in with size?
Yeah. We have a freshman last year who didn't play as much, but again, we were a pretty experienced team and guys who had played a lot in the previous years got a bulk of the playing time, I would say, this past year. But I'll mention Vernon Collins, CJ, we call him. CJ's nickname. So he's, 6'10" maybe.
Oh.
And has, I'd say, that from the times I've seen him has kind of blossomed a little bit. I know he's been working, and we've talked a little bit. Obviously Cade and Zach aren't very tall, but again, just super, super competitive and play hard,
right?
Which, I'll take that over guys who, can score any day. Like, we can win with guys who compete. And then I would say our last true big, maybe, we got a kid named Jacob Huggins coming in, who is from a great program in California. He went to Harvard Westlake, and I believe they just won their state championship in the highest division. So really good player, and I'm excited to see how he does this year. And, I'm only naming those guys just because, we mentioned the height aspect, but
right.
we have other freshmen coming in who are great players as well. I'm excited.
I'm just thinking long term when you run into Kalkbrenner again.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So Tosan, by far led the team in assist percentage. And obviously, he's your lead playmaker. I doubt that one person is going to fill those shoes, but who do you see being, orchestrating the offense? Is it going to be Davis, the freshman, or is it going to be yourself, or is it going to be Blake?
I expect a combination. It's, again, I would say it's pretty obvious. Our offense kind of ran through Tosan last year, and rightfully so. He was the best player in the league and one of the best players in the country, in my opinion. I think he proved that in March a little bit. So, we obviously lose a lot of playmaking and production with him, but we got a lot of guys who can play. So I don't know. Tosan is so unique that I'm not sure we have anybody, in our program, or even I'd say our league, who, could play through a guy like that. But, I expect our team to share the wealth, and we got a lot of guys who can make plays and score, and an unselfish group more than anything. So, we got however many guys on our roster off the top of my head, I don't know, but I know all of them will willingly pass up a good shot for a great shot. So, specifically related to Tosan's kind of position, I don't know. We'll see, but I know we got players, and I'm looking forward to how the offseason kind of shakes out, and then as we get playing. But I'm confident we'll have a good group of guys who can all make plays.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Tosan is so unique. I mean, is he a point guard? Is he a point forward? Is he a power forward? So
does it all.
Has coach indicated to you, like, has he said, hey, Matt, you're gonna need to be doing more this year. This is the plan. This is the plan for us, and this is gonna be, your role's gonna change a little bit.
Coach and I talk quite a bit. I wouldn't say we've talked about that as much. I think Coach always says that everyone on the team doesn't need to be any more than themselves. So as long as everyone is playing as their best version, their best self, then I mean that's I think is all we can ask for. If everyone's playing at their best, personally, then I think that'll be enough. And that may mean that myself or Cade or Zach is making shots, or Xavier or Blake, whoever has a big game one night and then doesn't score as much or make as many plays the next night, then it is what it is. But yeah, specifically, I mean, we talk about, just not missing an opportunity to make a play, but I would say that about everyone on our team as well. So I don't know how much my role will change. Like, we haven't talked like, hey, Matt, you got to score this amount of points. I don't think that would work best in, our
No,
team.
I was just thinking that maybe he was, say something like, you're going to be bringing the ball up a lot more this year. You're going to be running the pick and roll more this year, or maybe just the opposite. You're going to be playing off the ball more this year, coming off screens, coming off handoffs.
Yeah.
Things that
because we haven't been able to get together this summer. We have no summer practices or anything like we talked about earlier. It's still early to tell.
Right.
I guess we don't really know for sure until we're all together and playing and see how our team, what lineups are most successful. I don't know. It's hard to say right now.
I get it. All right. So I think an underrated statistic was one I mentioned at the top. You led the Ivy League in minutes played. What's it like? Have you always been an Iron Man? I mean, I know Dane, for example, at Notre Dame, it seems like they play 5 guys the whole game.
Yeah.
So, do you have to train specifically, or are you kind of born with this unbelievable, because, I watch you play, you play you play on both ends of the floor. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, for somebody playing 33 minutes a game, man, that's, by the time you get to, minute 35 in the game itself, you got to be like, oh, I don't want to play defense anymore.
No, I mean, obviously you can't have that mindset,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say I appreciate that Coach has me on the floor that much. I think that just shows that the trust that we have in one another and the belief. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunities he's given me. But yeah, I don't know. That's up to the coaches how much.
No, but I was meant, how do you sustain that energy on both ends? Be a two-way player, while leading a Division I conference in minutes played.
Hard to say. I don't know. I would say our program stresses living right, and I do my best to try to embody that, take care of myself, eat right, sleep a certain amount of hours, get rest when you need it, and then you just, pushing yourself. You got to get in great shape. I think the best way to get in great basketball shape is to just play basketball, and you need to do stuff outside of that, obviously, run and lift and all that stuff. But it's just a unique game is getting in, like, I know my experience in high school, a couple of our players also played football. And they could be in great football shape. And then when it's time for basketball season, it takes a little bit of time to get accustomed to that. So just playing as much as I can, I would say, to answer your question, would help, get in shape. I try and do that as much as I can. And when we get back on campus, we play, obviously we do some live stuff and we'll go full court and just, keep trying to push yourself, I guess would be my answer. So, yeah, I would say just taking care of yourself and living right which seems obvious, you know, but
and it helps that basketball is a beautiful game. So you don't even, when you're out there, at least for me, when I was your age and I was really into weightlifting, but I hated, aerobics. So I played basketball all the time. So that's what I did to, keep the fat off. So your nickname is Mush. How did that come about?
When I was very young, maybe second, third grade, something like that. I've always been a talkative guy, especially on the court. And again, my dad was always my coach, and he was like, "We're going to call you Mushmouth because you just nonstop." And I think that actually was outside of basketball when he started calling me that. So at the time, it really wasn't a good thing that he was calling me that, right? But it stuck, and now as I've grown, that's how everyone knows me. So our whole program now at Princeton calls me Mush. All my buddies from high school, coaches, whoever, all my hometown friends, I'm Mush to them. So very rarely am I called Matt. I would just say by my grandparents, or if I'm in trouble, they'll call me Matthew.
Bad Mush.
Yeah.
So your dad gave it to you just because you were a talkative boy this period? Okay, well, that's good. That's good. It's good to be talkative, especially at a young age. It's a good sign of intelligence. So in addition to being a talker and a relentless competitor and a great shooter, what aspect of your game do you think is underrated or underutilized? Like something maybe you do in practice or you've done in the past that maybe you don't get to do at Princeton? Or maybe it's just something that's underappreciated at Princeton.
I don't know. I would say just to the typical average basketball fan who just kind of looks at the box scores and sees so-and-so scored this many points, I would say just the talking aspect that's why I think people have continued to call me Mush. I think communication is a huge part of the game. I have a cousin in California, legendary basketball coach, Frank Allocco, would say communication increases your intensity. So I've always tried to just talk and talk and talk, and hopefully that will raise my teammates' level, but I think it does with mine as well. So if I'm out there and I'm not communicating and trying to lead, then that's not me at my best. And I think in order for me to be at that level every game is me talking and competing and hopefully, raising the level of my teammates.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. What at Princeton, tough school. What's your major? What are you interested in doing after I guess your major and what you do after your basketball career is over could be two totally different things, but so you can answer that either way, what you plan to do after basketball, whenever that might be, or what your major is, and what do you do for fun?
Well, first of all, I'm a sociology major. I would just say the math and sciences have never really been my strong suit, so what interests me, I would say, is just kind of the human dynamics, human aspects, social groups, social interaction, that type of stuff. So I think that's what kind of drew me to the major a little bit. So after basketball, I would like to play as long as I can, but after that is to be determined. Hopefully, not for a while. I have to seriously start thinking about that. God willing, my career is far from over, but I don't know. I would like to do something that keeps me involved in sports. That's kind of been my interest, and that's been my life for a while. So that's most of what I know. So whatever that may be, I don't know, but I think a big part of it is just building relationships and, connecting with people. And at Princeton, that's, you got to utilize those advantages. There's so many resources and people to talk to there or have been there. that are very open to helping me out. So I'm appreciative of that, and I'm hoping to build more connections, and we'll see from there.
Right.
And then you say, like, for fun, what do I do
Yeah.
for fun?
Yeah.
I like at school, especially, like if I'm not out the gym, I just like hanging out with my buddies. We watch TV, we'll binge watch whatever show we're watching at the time together. Movie nights were a big thing with our team. We'd watch a movie the night before every game. Some would say that's a little superstitious because we did it every game, but whatever. We ended up having a good year, so we might continue that tradition again.
Right. Right. Okay. So Dane's answer, by the way, when he was sitting in your chair, he said golf.
Yeah.
Do you play golf with him?
Nope, never have.
Okay.
Never
I
have.
hear he's a
Good
scratch.
too. Loves it.
He's a scratch golfer. So that's what I've heard. So that's excellent.
He plays quite a bit.
All right. So you mentioned the Princeton connections. This is the last question. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about Princeton. Princeton, of course, not only has a rich basketball history, but is one of the most prestigious academic institutions in the world. Those with degrees from the university include Albert Einstein, Woodrow Wilson, Bill Bradley, David Duchovny. By the way, that's the last time you're ever going to hear Albert Einstein and David Duchovny used in the same sentence. So with all that said, I thought it'd be fun to give you a Princeton trivia quiz. Are you up for that?
Yeah, I'm up for it. Sure.
All right. Here we go. What is the only Ivy League team to have an all-time winning record versus Princeton men's basketball?
Is it Penn?
That is correct. And my partner, Jake, who couldn't make it today, he actually sent me a photograph today in the Palestra. Imagine this. This is how much you stick in their head. They have like a scoreboard with their record versus you, all-time record. It's 126, 121. He sent me a photograph this morning. All right. Question number 2. What Ivy League team has earned the most NCAA bids?
At Princeton?
It is Princeton. Princeton with 26, Penn with 24.
Oh, it should
All
be.
right, you're 2 for 2. You're already beating Jake. I gave him this quiz last night. He only got 2 out of 5.
All right.
All right, your Sweet 16 appearance was the first for Princeton since what decade?
The 60s.
That is correct. Well done. 1967.
Yep.
All right. This is a tough one. Bill Bradley was a 3-time All-American. How many times did he win the Ivy League Player of the Year?
Ooh. I don't know. When did they start doing that award? I don't think he won one.
You are correct. You are correct.
I heard that before. I think that started after it.
It's a trick question. Well done. You're 4 for 4. All right, here we go.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before because he would have won it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 3-time All-American, definitely.
Yeah.
Which of these 3 people is not a Princeton graduate? Ralph Waldo Emerson, James Madison, and Brooke Shields.
James Madison.
No, incorrect. Waldo Emerson went to Harvard.
Okay.
All righty. Well, Matt, we're running out of time, and I want to thank you. This was really fun, and I'm not just saying that. I want to thank you for being on the show, and I hope we can do it again in the future, maybe during the season or maybe after the season, if that's okay. And I wish you and the team the best, and please say hello to Dane for me.
Will do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great fun.
All right. Take care.
All right. So after talking to Matt, which was great, we can move on to the Ivy League. I just want to talk about what happened last year. And last year, the conference champ, Princeton and Yale, tied for the regular season title. The Tigers defeated the Bulldogs in the conference tourney and advanced to the NCAA tournament. Princeton then went on to surprise nearly everyone by advancing to the Sweet 16 with wins over 2-seed Arizona and 7-seed Missouri. And then Creighton then defeated the Tigers, the Princeton Tigers, in a pretty close game, 86-75 to advance to the Elite Eight. Meanwhile, Yale went on to the NIT, and they lost in the first round to Vanderbilt. There are no coaching changes to talk about in this conference. So, and we'll go down and talk about some of these teams in the order that they finished last year. Of course, Princeton, which we just got done talking to Matt about, they bring back, of course, Matt, Cade Pierce, who was the Rookie of the Year, Devin Austin, Blake Peters, who was really hot during the tournament. They also have probably the highest recruit from the Ivy League in Dalen Davis. He is a 3-star coming in. At the same time, they lose Tosan Awoma and Ryan Langborg, who went to transfer to Northwestern because he's a graduate. So Ivy League rules, he had to go Northwestern. Well, he didn't have to go to Northwestern. He just had to go somewhere. And then Keyshawn Kellerman, their big man, went to Florida Gulf Coast. So, Jake, what do you make of this Princeton team?
They're gonna have to figure out who's gonna play, inside, who their big guys are gonna be. Also, offensively, they're going to take a step back when you miss a guy like Tosan, who can basically be a pseudo point guard for you and could be a guy, very, very unique skill set for a big guy like that. He would punish your centers if they had to guard him on the perimeter. He can play make a little bit, very, very under control, very smooth, can get to the free throw line, couldn't shoot, but could certainly get to the rim and was a really good mismatch forward who could do a lot of things for you. So to miss a guy like that, who can be a mismatched nightmare and can be someone who's very hard to prepare for, is a big loss. But you look at the guards they're going to bring back. You're absolutely right. Blake Peters, very hot in the tournament, was making a lot of threes. Matt Allocco, very solid, can make threes, could also defend at a high level. I know that a couple of times I saw Princeton play against Penn. His intensity and his energy in the defensive end, guarding a Clark Slackett or a Jordan Dingle was huge. Caden Pierce, to me, is the guy I definitely want to keep an eye on. One Rookie of the Year in this conference last year. Mitch Henderson, after the semifinal game in the Ivy League tournament where it was Penn versus Princeton, which, funny enough, when we wrap up Ivy League, I'll go on a little rant about the Ivy League tournament. But he called Caden Pierce probably the best rebounder he's ever coached. For a freshman, he had a double. In 3 games against Penn, he had 3 double-doubles. He was a machine on the glass, was able to knock down shots, get inside and score. And he's going to be key for this team because if they're not going to be able to play as big, having a guy like that who can gobble up rebounds is going to be big. So I don't think they'll be as good. I definitely don't think Mitch Henderson's team is making another Sweet 16 run, but they will certainly be at the top of this conference as they usually are. And I as I previously mentioned a couple seconds ago, I think Mitch Henderson is one of the, if not the best coach in this conference. And because of that, they are losing some guys, but Princeton will be right back in that top 4 and competing for the bid to go to the tournament.
I hear you. My main concern is not the guard play. I think they'll have plenty of good guard play. And Pierce, certainly at this level can play, power forward for you, but there's not really going to have anybody to protect the rim. And a lot of rebounding responsibility is going to be on Pierce. You'd like to see, like a 6'10" guy or at least a 6'9" guy, there to collect some boards and block some shots. And right now, there's no one obvious candidate to do that. So next in the conference, in the standings last year was Yale. As I said, they tied Princeton in the regular season, and they really lose only one key player, a very good player. E.J. Jarvis, a power forward, it can stretch the floor a little bit, and he transferred to Florida. But they bring back Matt Noling, who was first team Ivy last year, led the conference. The statistics I'm giving you, he's the leading returner in field goal percentage at 62.5. We have Bez Mbang, shooting guard, wing, defensive player of the year, reigning defensive player of the year. Then we have August Mahoney, and shooting guard. He's the top returner in effective field goal percentage at 64.6, top returner in offensive rating at 134.9, and the top returner in win shares at 4.2. This guy's highly efficient, deadly shooter. And then there is Yassine Garam, a point guard who led the conference, or is the leading returner in defensive rating at 89.8. So you have all those guys coming back, plus everyone's kind of forgotten about him, but Casey Simmons, a 4-star top 100 guy from Northwestern a couple years back, he sat out last year transferring in, and he will join this team, and he's a wing with decent size. So this team, it doesn't really have any big bigs. Again, this is going to be a repeated theme a lot in the Ivy League. Jarvis was probably their big player and probably their best rim protector last year. But otherwise, they have a lot of options.
Yeah, I do really like this team. You look at them last year, top 100 in both offense and defense in adjusted efficiency on KenPom, 58th in effective field goal percentage. You talk about some of the shooters they had. August Mahoney was terrific. 84th in three-point percentage. A lot to really like about this team, especially with who's coming back. Yeah, losing EJ Darvis to Florida to go into a Power 5 program is big, but Matt Allen got hurt in the Penn game when they had to play at the Palestra. I feel like they sputtered maybe a little bit towards the finish line. Missing a guy like that who can make shots at such a high level is one of the best players in the league. But there's still plenty coming back. You have Bang, the defensive player of the year. Garam coming back too. Not to mention James Jones again. This is a conference, I think, where there's actually a lot of really underrated coaches. I think coaching wise, the Ivy League is actually a damn good league. They have another guy in James Jones, one of the best under the radar guys, and I think one of the more underappreciated coaches in America. So still going to be very good. Personally, I think this is my pick to win with who they have coming back. But once again, I feel like usually the top 4 in this conference is Princeton, Penn, Yale, and Harvard. It's the 2 big rivals. I feel like once again, you're going to have Princeton up there, Yale will be up there. Once again, lots to really like about this team. Very solid on both ends. Bring a lot back though.
Right. And we'll get next. We'll talk about a team that a lot about, and that's University of Pennsylvania, and they have a legit NBA prospect leaving the team, and that's Jordan Dingle, player of the year in the Ivy League. He's moving on to St. John's. They still bring back a decent core of Max Martz, Clark. How do you say Clark's last name? Slackard. Like that name. All right. So they bring back Max Martz, Clark Slackard, Nick Spinozzo, and George Smith. They also have some recruits coming in. I'd say the most notable is Johnny Walker from Cal State Northridge. So Jake, I'm going to let you talk about Penn, and of course they're losing a huge piece in a guy who not many people are talking about, an NBA prospect, but you and I have been talking about him for since I've known you, and we think he has a shot to make it in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only are they losing an NBA prospect, but they're losing one of the guys with the highest usage rates in America from last year. He was a blessing for this team when Clark Slackard started out hot. I saw him drop 33 against Colgate at the Cathedral Classic, and then he had a bit of a slump. And with him being the second lead, the second option on this team, when he was slumping a little bit, it was a blessing for the Quakers when you could just give the ball to Jordan Dingle and be like, hey, you can get by anybody on this floor. We need you to go get a bucket for it. And anytime your offense is in a slump, when you have a guy like that, an effective 3-level scorer, great floater, really good really underrated vertical athlete who's got a very strong upper body that can finish at the rim, that can finish, can make
impressively.
Yes, a true 3-level scorer and some really good vertical pop too. that just by looking at him, you probably don't think that he has. So really a well-rounded offensive player in a lot of areas, scoring wise, that they're going to miss. There's going to be a lot of possessions and a lot of touches on offense that they have to figure out who that's going to go to with his departure. Another guy they're losing, Lucas Monroe, who's going to Drexel. I think this is the record for probably the shortest transfer ever, distance-wise. But depending on where his apartment was or where he lived at the University of Pennsylvania, he might have actually lived closer to Drexel's campus. Of course, we don't know Penn and Drexel, the shortest distance between two Division I schools in America.
Yes.
They're separated by Market Street, and that's it. I get off the train at 30th Street every day, and I have to walk through Drexel's campus to get to Penn's campus, which is, hilarious in its own right.
I dated a girl at Drexel, so I'm familiar with the area.
Yeah, really, University City, great area, by the way. Very, very, very nice.
Also
area.
got in a car accident not too far from there. Somebody actually jumped. No, somebody jumped lanes. It was like a young girl. She was like, she just got her driver's license. She actually just drove right into my lane. Brand new. It was my first sports car I ever owned. It was a 240 SX, and I had it, a couple months. Bam, right there, right in front of the convention center, the Civic Center. It's okay. Right in front of that.
Yeah, that's why I take the train. But then again, I'm late almost every day. But yeah, so Lucas Monroe goes to Drexel for his 5th year, having to leave the Ivy League. If he wants to use that COVID year, has to leave the conference and go elsewhere. Not a guy whose stats jump off the page, but a true glue guy. His energy, his intensity, his defense, his rebounding just makes a lot of hustle plays. It makes a lot of plays that go into winning and that contribute to winning. And they're really going to miss his experience. And then lastly, they lose Max Lorca-Lloyd, who's was a backup center, who goes to UMBC. Gave them a true athletic big who could protect the rim and block shots, something that Nick Spinoso doesn't have. But as we'll talk about with their returners, I'll talk about Nick Spinoso first. 28.6% assist percentage.
Which is the top returning percentage in the conference, and he's a center.
Yeah, which is crazy. I've talked a lot about really good coaches in this conference, and Steve Donahue was up there. I think Steve Donahue is a terrific X and O coach. The guy's been at Cornell, has been at Boston College. I really do think he's terrific X and O wise. They played fast last year when they had to late in the season, but they also can slow you down. A lot of really good off-ball movement. But it helps when you have a guy like Nick Spinoso who you can get him the ball on the block. He can make some behind-the-back passes and hit a weak-side putter. But when you get him the ball on the block, and he's able to see over the defense and can hit a guy on a flare screen, can hit a guy weak side for a 3. That can open up so much more for you, and you can become such a more dangerous offense doing that. So him coming back is big because he's really a terrific passer. And I would say one of the better ones in college basketball as far as the center position passing the ball. They bring back Clark Slacker, who could score. But I mentioned the slump he had last year.
Yeah.
And I start to have questions, and it's like, okay, well, if you don't have a Jordan Dingle and you're now the focal point, can you shoulder that load now? Can Clark Slacker be your 1A? Now you're not going to replace Jordan Dingle. You're just not. Me and you think this is an NBA player. Not often you see surefire guys like that in the Ivy. So you're not going to be able to replace a guy like that. But can Clark Slacker be your 1A when you have to go against and can he propel you to a tournament berth when you have to go up against really good defensive perimeters from Yale and from Princeton? To also bring back Max Martz for the time being, a guy who last year shot the 3 ball very well, took advantage of a lot of mismatches on the block. If they could ever get a switch and he could get a running hook shot across the lane. And when they needed him, really, when Clark Slacker was struggling, he was their second option last year and was really big for them on the wing as a guy. And lastly, George Smith came off the bench last year, believe started a couple games, but really like his game, can knock down threes. And here's the thing, Rich, what I like about George Smith, it's guys that, whether you're the most athletic guy on the court, whether the fastest, the quickest or whatnot, if you're just willing to defend and you're willing to put your body on the line and fight over screens and stuff like that, you will definitely find time on the court. And that's what George Smith has done even 2 years ago since his freshman year. He'll knock down threes. He is willing to defend, and that's why he's a valuable piece on this team that they're really going to need. And then you look at who they bring in. How about Sam Brown from Lower Merion, the son of former 76ers head coach Brett Brown, who kind of was the guy who started the process. They bring in Tyler Perkins from DC, and then yes, they did bring in Johnny Walter, which kind of rare. You don't see too many transfers in the Ivy League. They obviously can't take the grad transfers. They have to take undergrad. Played sparingly last year at CSUN, but with Max Lorca-Lloyd leaving, Michael Moshkovitz, who could kind of play a 4 for them if they had to, also leaving. They did need a big body. They're going to get one in Johnny Walter who can step out, knock down a shot here and there. But just regardless, provide them with a big guy that they don't have. I still think this team has a fighting chance because I think Steve Donahue is that good of a coach. But I think that fighting chance, Rich, is probably getting that 4th spot in, if they want to make the Ivy League tournament. I'm going to take a step back. I thought they were the best team in the league last year. I thought they could and should have made the tournament. They easily could have been. They went 0-3 against Princeton last year. They easily could have been 2-1. They blew a huge lead at Princeton on the last weekend of the year. And then the very next week, they had to go right back to Jadwin Gymnasium and play on Princeton's home court in the first round of the Ivy League tournament. It was a back and forth game. Just couldn't get it done at the end. It couldn't get a rebound. But they're not. They're certainly going to take a step back. And I'm telling you, I think if they're going to make the Ivy League tournament, they're going to have to scrap and claw for that 4th spot.
Right. So now we'll move on to Cornell, who was had the interesting. They led the league in points per game, and they also led the league in points per game allowed. So, and of course, they topped the Ivy League in pace last year, and they were 27th in the nation in pace. So Cornell averaged 82 points per game last year, which was 9th in the nation. They also had an offensive efficiency rating of 111.1, which is 22nd in the nation. So they do lose a good player in Greg Dolan, their point guard, to Loyola Chicago. But everybody else comes back. And I think this team is just going to be better. You have Nazir Williams, who shot better than 41% from deep last year, averaged over close to 13 points per game. He's a good foul shooter too. He's a legit, he's on our draft board. I mean, I'm not going to say he's NBA bound, but he's on our draft board. And then they have Chris Mannion, who is very athletic. I mean, he has NBA athleticism. He's the type of guy you'll see dunk over 2 guys. And he comes back. He's a wing. He's the leading returning in steals per game, 2.3 a game, leading returner in steal percentage at 6.2, leading returner in player efficiency rating at 26.2, and also in plus minus at 5.0. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually led the conference outright in all those categories last year. And so, but he's definitely the leading returner in those categories this year. So basically, they also bring back Isaiah Gray, Sean Hansen, Guy Ragland, and Keller Boothby. And those last 3 guys all have decent size to them. So I think really, as long as they find somebody, to handle the point guard duties, this team's going to put up a lot of points again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that they score a lot of points, but because they score a lot of points and they play so fast and they put up so many shots, it just leaves them vulnerable sometimes to giving up a lot. They put up 105 at Miami last year and only lost because they gave up 107. That's just kind of how it goes with them sometimes. It's just the way they play. Yeah, Greg Dolan is a big loss heading to Loyola Chicago, but bringing back the quality of the 6 guys that they have, and especially with Hansen and Boothby, guys that can step out and shoot threes, they really can hurt you, and you have to be on your toes defensively because this team can spread you out and really score points in a hurry and put them up. But I do think they'll be right up there again. It's just to see like, hey, is that defense going to improve? Is that defense going to be there? But like I said, it's just the way they play, getting up and down like that. You just leave yourselves open sometimes to giving up some easy baskets. I do believe this is a top 4 team. I think a top 3 team. I think Yale, Princeton, Cornell are my top 3 right now. And they certainly have a shot to make the tournament. A lot of returners here, lots to like. I think it's a common theme, not only with every team that we've talked about in our preview episodes, but certainly in this league as well. Those teams that have a lot of returners are the teams that I think are going to be the most successful. So really like what this team's got offensively with, as you said, Nasir Williams and Chris Mignon coming back. And I still think they'll absolutely be right up there for the Ivy League tournament.
Right. Another team who returns pretty much everybody but one really good player, and that's Brown. And the player they're losing is Paxton Wojcik, who's going to North Carolina, by the way. But not only are they bringing back at least 5 key contributors, they're bringing back a variety of size. Like a lot of these teams are bringing back, a lot of guards, but not many bigs. Brown's bringing back, well, I'll talk about their 2 best players coming back. And first is Keno Lilly. He's a shooting guard. He was first team Ivy last year. He averaged 17 points per game. He's the leading returner in 3-pointers made. With 77, and he shot 40% from deep last year. This guy can score. He can create his own shot. Sometimes shot selection is a little questionable because, but he can do it. I mean, he's definitely a shot creator, a fun player to watch. The other guy, and I hope I get this name right, Nana Owusu-Anane.
Nana Owusu-Anane.
Oh, boy. Nana Owusu-Anane returns for them, and he is a center, and he's the leading returner in the conference for rebounds per game at 8.2 and rebound percentage at 16.6. They're bringing back Kalu Anya, who's a power forward, Daniel Friday, who's a wing, and Kimo Ferrari, who's a point guard. So basically, they're bringing back what looks to be a solid starting 5, though Wojcik was in that starting 5 last year. So. What do you think about Brown?
Yeah, so I think with Keno Lilly and Nana Owusu-Anane coming back, I certainly think they are a viable team that can be in the top 4. They just narrowly missed out on it last year, finishing 5th. Yeah, Paxton Wojcik is a big loss. Watched him when Brown came to Penn, and very, very quick. When I watched him play, I said he's got the quickness and the speed to be able to play up for sure. A guy that can shoot a little bit, plays a little bit of an edge. Will probably come off the bench for North Carolina, but I still think will be a rotation player for him. I think that's a really good pickup for them, and he was certainly one of the best players in the league last year. But it's these 2 guys, and Keno Lilly and Nana, that are going to carry him. Keno Lilly's now going to have, without Paxton Wojcik, now he's going to even have more of a green light if he didn't have already last year to be able to score the ball.
Right.
And yeah, Nana is a load down there to handle in the paint. Going to grab just about every rebound there possible. And if you have a guy like Keno Lilly that's going to be firing him up, you need a guy that's going to be able to go get the rebounds for you, give you some more looks on the offensive end. So even with the loss of Paxton Wojcik, they still have 2 really good players in Keno Lilly and Owusu-Anane. And because of that, with Mike Martin, I still think they'll be around that top 4. I think they could avenge narrowly missing out on it last year and could certainly be in that top 4 this year.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have 3 other teams in the conference: Dartmouth, Harvard, Columbia, and that's the way they finished last year. Harvard, of course, loses Chris Ledlum to St. John's. He was going to somewhere in the Big 12, wasn't he?
He's going to Tennessee originally.
Oh, right. Tennessee. Then he changed his mind. St. John's recently. They're also losing Luke Sakota. Dartmouth is losing Dame Adelicum. Big loss for them. Columbia isn't really losing anybody of import, and they do bring back Guillermo Rubio de la Rosa, who leading returner and free throws per game, total free throws. Kid out of the Dominican Republic who good scorer, averaged 14 points per game last year while shooting 37% from deep and 89% from the foul line. Also, for a little guy, he gets a lot of rebounds, 5.6 per game. So he's an interesting player to watch on what should be probably a bad team. So what, you have any comments about Dartmouth, Harvard, or Columbia?
Yeah, I'll try and touch on Dartmouth and Harvard real quick. Columbia, they were 7-22 overall, only 2-12 in the conference. And I don't believe it's really going to get any better. So I'm not going to bother really speaking too much on them. But pretty solid year for Dartmouth, I guess. They finished sixth. I believe they beat Princeton. They beat Penn when Penn had to go up there. So they actually had a couple nice wins last year. But they lose Dante Maddox Jr to Loyola Chicago. Dominant big guy who could score in the paint and grab rebounds. We're also losing Cam Kostoviak, who's going to Iona, who can shoot the ball a little bit. They are bringing back Ryan Cornish, their point guard. Feisty little dude who can actually score a little bit and plays with some swagger. I think he's actually like a pretty damn good player in this conference. But really, really hard place to recruit. Middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. And when you can't really recruit local guys like that. Like this is legitimately one of the toughest jobs in America, I would say, especially for basketball. And losing two of their starters, who are also their big guys as well. Even after finishing sixth last year, they could maybe be tussling with Columbia a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a very good year for the Big Green. And touching on Harvard, really like Tommy Amaker, but my biggest concern with this team, Rich, they couldn't shoot last year. They were really bad at shooting threes. Now you're going to lose a big forward in Chris Ledman who could score down low and could take bigs off the dribble. You lose Lucas Sakota, who after shooting almost 40%, or right at 40% 2 years ago, did not have a good shooting year last year. And then their leading three-point shooter from a season ago, Yidon Treto, is also going to Iona to play for Tobin Anderson, playing with Cam Kostoviak. So Harvard's losing a lot. They didn't shoot it well last year, and the guys they had that could shoot aren't going to be there. So I think offense is going to be even harder to come by for a team that offensively wasn't great and from the three-point line wasn't great. And I think it could be a rough year for Harvard. So Dartmouth, Harvard, and Columbia, unfortunately, these three teams were, the bottom three in the conference last year. And with what they're losing, I think it'll stay that way. I think maybe Harvard could maybe jump Dartmouth, but they're losing a lot. Points could be hard to come by. So I think these three teams, unfortunately, are going to be in the basement. They're going to miss out on the tournament for another year.
One player to watch on Harvard is somebody who's now a junior, missed almost all of last season due to injury, is Louis Lamont. He's a French player. I think he's only played like 25 games so far in his career. He's not going to pick you up in the shooting department. At least he hasn't shown that so far in his career. But he is athletic. He was highly regarded when he signed with Harvard. He was not by U.S. recruiting services, but by European people who ranked the younger guys. They liked Louis Lamont a fair amount. So if Louis at 6'6", 190, he can play defense. He can block shots. He can steal rebounds. If he can develop a jump shot, he could be, like a all-conference type player, but that is yet to be seen. So let's move on to our Ivy League predictions, Jake. Who wins this conference?
So I didn't type mine in because I was hoping that it would be a surprise and we wouldn't maybe agree with each other for once. But I'm gonna say Yale is gonna win. I think Princeton is actually going to surprise some people and finish second, even with Cornell returning more players. I think Princeton is going to finish second. Cornell is going to finish third. It's going to be a fight between Brown and Penn for that fourth slot. I am going to say that Brown gets it, though, because I think with Tino Lilly, they'll have a guy who can get them buckets down the stretch, and that will be the difference for them.
All right. I am going with Yale to win, and I feel pretty confident about that. I think Cornell is going to be a very good team, and I think they finish second. Princeton, I have third. I actually have the Princeton and Brown fighting for third. So that's the way I see that. How many teams make the NCAA tournament? Obviously, I would think this is a one bid league unless something. It just doesn't look like there's enough. I mean, Yale's probably going to have a pretty impressive record, but yeah, I think it's a one bid league, don't you?
Yeah, I was trying to think of something outlandish to say that I would do if this is a two bid league, but I can't think of anything else. That's almost not even worth bothering. This is a one bid league, pretty much always has been.
All right.
I can't even think of the last time that maybe.
No, I can't either. I can't even think about when it was even a thought. So, all right. So, how about your player of the year selection?
Unfortunately, I think we're going to agree here. But here's the thing, Rich. Jordan Dingle's out. Chris Ledlam's gone. Your two leading scorers in this conference from last year are gone. Not to mention that Paxton Wojcik is gone as well. So, because of that, the leading scorer in this league for the next year will be Keno Lilly. And because of that, if Keno Lilly can lead this conference in scoring and Brown makes the Ivy League tournament, makes that top four, he will win Ivy League Player of the Year. And I believe that he will.
I agree. I do have Brown finishing in that top four, and I think he wins the MVP. You know, I gave serious thought to the Yale guys, but I think they're going to cancel each other out, and that would be Matt Nalling, and August Mahoney, and even Bez Mbang. I mean, defensive player of the year. If he took up his offensive game a notch, he could be in the running. You also got to remember with Yale, they're throwing Casey Simmons in the mix, so who knows how that's going to affect everyone else. So the Yale guys, I think, are going to cancel each other out, and Keno Lilly will get this award. By the way, we almost landed Keno for the show, so I'm hoping that maybe later on in the year we can get him in for an interview. So speaking of interviews, the next thing we're going to do is I spoke to Dante Maddox Jr., Toledo guard, one of the best shooters in the country last year, about what the upcoming season for Toledo and what his thoughts are in the MAC this year. And we'll roll that interview right now. Today's special guest is Toledo guard Dante Maddox Jr., who was a key member of one of the best offensive teams in the nation last season. The Rockets ranked second in the country for scoring at 85.4 points per game, and they led the nation in offensive efficiency. Dante averaged 11.3 points, 3.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 1.1 steals per game while shooting 49% from the floor, 45% from deep, and 75% from the free throw line. He led the conference in three-point percentage among those with at least 4 attempts per game. He finished third in the conference for true shooting percentage and finished fifth in offensive rating. Dante, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a good Friday. Not Good Friday, Easter Good Friday. It's just been a good Friday.
Right.
So how's your summer going? What have you been up to?
Summer's been going relatively well for me. Just been with the guys mostly at school, and just grinding, working, trying to make sure that we can go and replicate the similar here to what we had last year. Right now, actually, I got a chance to go home and spend some time with my family before we go back to school and get to work. But yeah, that's really been it. A healthy dosage of basketball. Obviously, me personally, I had summer school, so I got a couple A's in summer school, and
nice.
I'm recharged and ready to get back at it come the fall.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned last season, for those who don't know, 3 teams stood out in the MAC. Toledo, Kent State, and Akron. And some were talking, during the season that you the conference might get 2 NCAA bids. It came down to Kent, the second seed versus, your Rockets, the 1 seed in the conference tourney. Sincere Carey, I believe, was player of the year in the conference.
2 years ago.
Oh, right. Ray J was last year, right? Sincere Carey, though, was really good in that championship game and led the Golden Flashes to victory. And as it turned out, it would be the only bid for the MAC into the big dance. You guys went on to the NIT, lost at Michigan. So obviously the end of the season had to be somewhat disappointing. But what positives did you take away from last year, and what did you learn?
First off, the end of the season was relatively disappointing. I can't say it was a disappointing season because through it all, I think we did some great things, some historical things, in Toledo, winning 17 games in a row in conference play, which I don't know the last time that's been done. But in terms of the season, we still fell short. We fell short of the goal in terms of going to the NCAA tournament, and I know that's the goal that we all been trying to work so hard to achieve. And so coming into this next year, same goals apply, same rules, same morality. I think coming into this season, we want to continue to get better, and I think it's a different feel than say the previous years, because I think the last 3 or so years for Toledo basketball is relatively been set. You knew what you were kind of getting into for the most part in terms of the players. We had veterans last year, and JT Shoemate and Seth Milner and Ray J. Dennis. So we had people who we knew what we were getting. We knew the high quality in terms of talent and the high quality of character in terms of the basketball players we were getting. And this year it's a little different. This year, I want to say we got 6 freshmen.
I know of 5. Yeah.
5, and then 6 in terms of freshmen that haven't played. You include James Simmons, who was a redshirt freshman last year. So we kind of got a new dimension. We are integrating a lot of new players. We got one graduate transfer in Ben White, who we all are very high on. Ben White, a very skilled, very talented basketball player. And then you bring in the few returning players that we do have. I know we have Raheem Moss, who obviously has been the starting guard at Toledo for the last few years. You got Andre Lawrenson, who's the shooter that came over from St. Louis last year in the transfer class. And last but not least, kind of rounding that out, we got Tyler Cochran, who didn't get to show all that he could because of his injury he was battling all season. And those are really talented players, So we're trying to just put it all together, and I like the dynamic to what the team and how it's looking so far. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the new challenge. So
okay, you kind of stole my next question, which I was going to go over who's coming and who's going. But you talking about record-setting season, Toledo became the first team to win 3 consecutive regular MAC titles, regular season titles. But yeah, Ray J, Player of the Year, going to Baylor. JT moved on to the pros, and Seth moved on to the pros. Plus, you had a pretty promising freshman in EJ Farmer, and he surprisingly transferred to Youngstown. So, on the other hand, you have a great freshman class. Sonny Wilson is probably the most well-known of the group. And, of course, you mentioned Ben, who's coming from William and Mary. So, how confident I know you guys you worked out at least a few weeks together. How do you see the team shaping up? I saw an interview with Coach, and he said he expects Sonny to be starting at point guard. So, for example, how pleased are you with what you see there?
Very pleased. Sonny Wilson has a maturity about him that's beyond his years. One player that was able to learn. It's the learning curve, obviously, in college, and he's going to continue to go through the learning curve. But right away, we've seen that he was someone who picked up on things very fast and brought a calmness, brought a toughness, and brought a confidence to the team that every team could use, especially at University of Toledo, in terms of being a team that always is known for the prowess of the guards. So super high on Sonny, very talented, and for sure a player that has a super bright future here in the MAC.
Okay. When I look over the roster, as it looks to me from an outsider, the backcourt seems to be in good hands. And I still think you're going to be a really good shooting team. But what I'm concerned about, and maybe this was what prevented you from taking that final step last year, was a lack of size. You were a small team. I mean, JT's 6'6", 6'7", and he was playing center for you last year. So how do you think the front court is shaping up? Do you think how different? I mean, I know Ben is not the shooter JT was, but not many forwards can shoot like JT. So how do you see the front court? Are you worried? Is there somebody like in the mix that you think, okay, you don't know this guy, but he's going to step up this year and we're going to be a little bigger than we were last year?
I definitely think it's more of a versatility to our team this year for sure that we didn't have last year. And in terms of the size aspect, I think we actually are for sure bigger than what we were previous. I think of someone like Ben, and then I think of someone, we call him Big G. His name Gerger, and he's the one that's from Croatia, who also is a very big kid as well, who is extremely athletic and play above the rim, block shots. And then also you add in the fact that we have Javen Simmons now, who's someone who has a big body, who also can bruise and is physical, and is someone who is athletic as well. And then you add the fact that we still also have Andre, who is 6'8", 6'9" as well, who is more of a shooter. But I know this year we've been working on implementing him being more of an all-around player and someone who can be used for sure down low if needed to offensively, and can guard down low bigger players defensively. So I think we have a little bit more versatility in terms of size that we might not have had in the recent years with the smaller backcourt or front court with JT and Seth that we've had. But I mean, those are a few 6'8", 6'9" players that this year I can see being implemented into the rotation and playing.
Okay. All right. So you've been pretty modest so far, but everything points to you being, the top number one offensive option this year and probably an all-MAC selection. Are you prepared to see a lot more defensive attention this year?
I believe so. In terms of you just saying modesty, that's just because I come from a family where it all sounds good until it happens. So that's just kind of how my mind and how I'm thinking about it. But in terms of that, I think I'm somebody who really, my biggest thing is winning. And if that's in this year, having to step up and having a bigger role, I'm going to make sure that I'm equipped and well prepared to handle that. And I think I will be.
Okay. Let's talk a little specifics about your game. You were one of the top shooters in the country last season. 92nd percentile for points per shot on jumpers, and on overall jumpers, you were at the 96th percentile. In terms of play types, you excelled on spot up, ISO, and off-screen plays. And if you included the results of passes, you were also very good as a pick-and-roll handler. You're about average as a scorer, but you were a little above average as a scorer, but really good when you included the results of passes. With that being said, how do you expect your role to be changing this year? Has coach said you're going to be doing more of this, that, or the other thing? And the second part of that would be, what specific aspects of your game have you been working on to prepare for, a different season?
Yes, for sure. I think me personally, I continue to work on my all around game. And I think our coaching staffs kind of have a philosophy. And if you know what I'm saying, as I'm sure you do your research, it's a constant kind of next man up mentality with these guards. And usually 9 times out of 10 of recent years, they've been ready for it in terms of Ray J, in terms of Ryan, in terms of Marion. So each year it's like, okay, well, the next man up. This year, the next man up. This year, the next man up. And I just think that's just the way kind of how Toledo operates. And when it comes to me, I think Coach Ingram and I have been working a lot on this offseason, working a lot in the spring, working a lot this summer as well to make sure that my game will be able to bark up the same tree in terms of the amount that I might have the ball, the amount I might be playmaking, the amount I just have in terms of having a bigger role. And I think, like I said, I'm not worried or concerned in terms of it. I think I've had the awareness and opportunity to play with some of these great guards. Just seeing, also having the literal eyes to see Ray J play and practice and work out constantly over and over again was something that it can't help but help. It can't help but help. So seeing his work ethic, seeing how his mentality and how he attacked everything and the maturity that he brought in terms of the games is something that I personally have taken with me and I'm going to continue to take with me, and I'm going to implement it into this year as I think I'll have to step up as a leader and have a bigger role.
Okay. Have they specifically, I could probably envision one thing I have that I think you probably be doing more is working a little more in the pick and roll as both a scorer and a distributor. Do you think that's going to be something coming your way?
For sure. Just playmaking, being able to create with the ball in my hands and just being able to work in Toledo offense is something I definitely think will be implemented more this year for me and this year. And I'm excited for it. And like I said, I think I'm more than capable and ready to produce at a high level.
Right. So I mentioned a lot of things you're good at. Is there something that you think, a piece of your game that is underrated, that people don't know, that I think I could be really good at this? I just really haven't had a chance to show it.
I'll say,
or it could be, let me interrupt for a second, or it could be something that you've been doing already, but people just seem to overlook it.
Hey, it's two things I'll probably want to point out in particular. First is defensively. I think I'm someone who can really play defense, be a ball hawk, and guard. And whenever it comes down to it, I think my mindset is to try to be the best defender as possible and try to make an all defensive team, especially before I leave Toledo. That's first and foremost. But second, just my overall ability to score the ball. I feel like it's something that that we've seen in doses, maybe not the whole entire thing, simply because we had such a great team filled with so many veterans. And with that being said, you just try to go in and play the role that's needed and understand that I was playing behind some high-level future professional basketball players at whatever level that may be. Right. And being able to come in and figure it out, I think that that it kind of maybe didn't go without mention, but I feel like my overall scoring is something that everyone hasn't got a chance to fully see. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm excited to have the opportunity to show the world. Right.
I feel like you have a high IQ, and you seem to have some is God-given ability with you have a lot of moves in your bag, but you also have a knack, even when you're not going full speed or not doing anything fancy, to find a way to get open. Sometimes it's on the ball, off the ball, but it seems like you often get open looks, which obviously is a huge advantage and probably one of the reasons why you're ultra efficient, from all areas on the court.
Yeah.
Right. So I know you told me your dad played the game. Where did he play, and how has he influenced your development?
It's funny you say that, because I think that goes into just the last part that you mentioned, but I'll get into that in a second. My dad, he played Division II. He went to Lynn University and also led Lynn University to one of the best seasons in its school history, and they went to a Division II Final Four, which he was starting point guard for that team. Also, well, I'm gonna start by saying me and my dad have totally different games. My dad was a lead point guard, set it up, give everyone the ball, super high IQ, very vocal, a great leader. And he kind of also him being my high school basketball coach, as he's coaches Boone Township in Chicago Heights, Illinois. So, and that kind of goes with the whole being open and having that knack. My whole life, my dad's been bringing me up to his practices and playing with his team, his varsity guys. And whenever I get the chance to play one-on-one or play in a 5-on-5 setting as a little kid, I always had to figure out a way to get the ball, get open, and get some open shots, because I always was able to shoot, but I wasn't that big and athletic to being able to create like that. So I always had to figure out a way. And as I got older, that kind of just acclimated to being a knack, to being able to create space and figure out ways to get open and shoot and score the ball. So, yeah, I'll say that all kind of correlates.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Let's talk about your current coach, Ted, and I'm hoping I can get this right, Kowalczyk.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. He was named the MAC Coach of the Year for the second time in the last 3 years this past season. How would you describe his coaching style, and what about his system makes you guys such an offensive force?
It's just I'll just say we're a reflection of him in terms of his personality, in terms of how he is. Also, one extremely hardworking and extremely humble guy, but very confident in what he does and the work that he's put in. And that's kind of the way that our offense runs. He's someone who gives his players, he's very confident in his guards, very confident in his players. And it gives a style that you would want to play in. It's just offensive freedom. With that being, I think that he's put so much meticulous detail into his offensive systems and his sets and working on getting his players open and getting his players open in a position to be successful. He genuinely, it blows my mind sometimes the on-fly adjustments that he can make. And sometimes not even adjustments, sometimes just the plays that he calls during the games, and it just seems to work right when we need it. Like very, very high IQ in terms of his knowledge for the game. And I always say this anytime I'm on air, I think of him as like an offensive guru. And time again, each year we see that it's true. Right. So very high on him. And I'm grateful that I got the opportunity to be in his system.
Right, and it bears repeating. Second in the country, you guys were in scoring, first in offensive efficiency. You know what surprised me? You guys were only third in the league in pace. Buffalo was first, and I forget who was second. But you guys were only third in pace, but yet you still that goes to why you were the top offensive efficiency team in the country, is because you're not even the fastest team out there. You're not just running and gunning, and it's pretty amazing.
So yeah, man, that just also is a testament to his recruiting and the kind of, he has an eye for exactly what he wants and the type of players that will fit his system, whether that's coming out of high school or in the transfer portal. So man, he trust me, it's been days like in practice where people, it's been lineups. We go and we play against each other, and people just not missing. He playing great defense, and it's like, oh my goodness, we got to get a stop before you get on offense. And you look up, man, they didn't score 20 points, and you ain't even get on offense yet. Like that's just really, we've really seen stuff like that a lot. So
right,
yeah.
All right, so I see you got the Heights shirt on. By the way, that's a very cool looking shirt.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so Chicago is one of my favorite places or cities in the United States. Are you living in, what side of town are you on?
So I'm a little south of the city, exactly. I'm in the city called Chicago Heights, which is relatively close to the city of Chicago, but right on the outskirts, out suburbs. Yes.
When I go there, I always there's some good Irish pubs up on the north side that have darts. I'm a dart player. So, and Chicago has great dart players. But anyway, how would you, you grew up in Chicago, you played 2 years at Cal State Fullerton, now you're at Toledo. Is Chicago still your favorite place in the world to be, or?
It's nothing like it, man. I think it's nothing like it. As somebody who's in now can say that he's been a lot of places in this country, I still don't think it's nothing like it. I might be biased, but being on the West Coast was fun and it has its perks and everything. But to me, it's still nothing like home. Nothing like home, especially when we're talking about basketball.
Yeah, right.
Chicago basketball is 1-on-1 in my opinion, and in the MAC, I also think that. Like, I think Chicago players do very well in the MAC. So, Illinois prospects in general, but Chicago in particular is home to me. Is where I spent a lot of my time, where I spent my AAU seasons, where I spent playing high school basketball, and I think it's just kind of that culture is just. I might be biased, but I don't think it's nothing better.
I like I said, it's one of my favorite cities. I like it a lot better than New York, which I'm close to. I'm really close to New York. So, so do you play darts?
I don't play darts.
Okay.
I have played darts, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Especially up north, it's for sure a thing.
Yeah.
But me personally, I'm more, I'm in the background type of guy when it comes to stuff like that. I don't play darts that much, no.
All right. So what do you do? What do you do for fun and relaxation?
Oh man, I take pride in my bowling skills.
All right, that's kind of like the other sport. There's two sports where you can still be good and drink a lot: darts and bowling.
Yeah, I love bowling, man. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, what's your handicap like? Do you have one? I mean, you're in the league, and
no, I don't really have time to be in the league or nothing.
Right.
Even like sometimes when we might go as a team at Toledo sometimes, and people know they a lot of times people just be like, we might as well just give him a separate lane. Like at this point, I didn't practice. We got a couple. Also, Sonny's really good too.
Oh,
Sonny,
yeah?
So we'll go and we'll be bowling and we'll be competing against each other, and it'll just be us two, and everybody else will do their own thing.
All right, cool. I'm not a very good bowler, but anyway, I do enjoy it. It's just I'm not a shark for sure. So lastly, you're a communications major, and after your basketball playing career is over, do you still want to do something that's involved in a game, like coaching or broadcasting or?
All the way. In the perfect world, I'll be able to play at the highest level I possibly can play at. Hang my shoes up, in my dream, I want to have my own TV show on national television, similar to like, Undisputed or to First Take or on ESPN or a major network. I want to be able to talk and give my opinions on everything sports related, with the emphasis obviously in basketball. But I'm somebody who grew up a sports fan in general. And so just being able to talk about whatever's going on, I want to be able to sit down, do a whole bunch of research on what's going on in baseball, what's going on in football, what's going on in any sport that's up and going in our country, and be able to talk about it and talk about what I want to talk about. That's in the perfect world. That's my dream, and I'm gonna make that happen.
All right. Do you have to do an internship for communications? Have you done it already?
I have to do an internship. I'm most likely going to do an internship next summer.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome to do it at Hoops Prospects.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm serious. We have interns all the time. So, yeah. All right. So, I want to tell you before I say goodbye, you are the third player from Toledo to be on the show. We're in our third year. So we had JT on around Christmas last year, and we had Ray J on after the season. So Toledo leads Notre Dame and a few others that we've had on twice. You guys, you've passed them. Toledo's now number one, being on Hoops Prospects podcast. So,
go Rockets.
All right, Dante, I want to thank you for being on the show today, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Sure.
And I'm wishing you the best and the team the best. I know there's probably pressure on you this year, and I think you'll do fine. And I'll definitely be watching and rooting for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. What we're gonna do is Jake has had to leave. So I'm gonna do the rest of the show solo, which is a first for me. So bear with me. I've never talked to myself before. So this is a little unusual, but so what we're gonna do is we still have to preview the MAC and the Missouri Valley Conference. Of course, we just talked to Dante about the MAC, but just to go over the conference in detail. Last year, 3 teams stood out, and that was Toledo, Kent State, and Akron. And some were thinking that the conference might get more than one bid. It came down to Kent as the 2 seed and Toledo as the 1 seed in the conference championship. And Kent came out on top, and they went on to the big dance to lose in the first round in a relatively close game to Indiana. They lost 71-60. Toledo went on and lost to a Michigan team that wasn't really at full strength in the first round. I think didn't ask Dante this, but I think Toledo was a little bit disappointed because they were the top seed. They had been pretty dominant. They led the conference in points per game and they're actually second in the nation in points per game at 85.4, the best in the country in offensive efficiency and 119.3. Kent, on the other hand, was one of the top defensive teams in the country. They only allowed 65.9 points per game, which was best in the conference, and they were 20th in the country in defensive efficiency at 92.9. So one more note on Toledo was that they were second in the country in terms of 3-point percentage at they're almost 40%. So the coaching changes this year is Southern Utah's Todd Simons is moving to Bowling Green, and former Villanova assistant George Holocopridge III, I'm not sure, is going to Buffalo, replacing Jim Whitesell, which has become quite a Buffalo pretty much has had a coaching carousel there since Nate Oates left. Maybe even before Nate Oates, but all right. So we'll talk about who's coming and going for each team. Of course, Kent State, we'll talk about them first. They are losing point guard Sincere Carey. It's a huge loss for them. And he was their best player. He was their leader. They're also losing Malik Jacobs, who was the defensive player of the year in the conference for a team that really relied on defense. Coming back, they have point guard Giovanni Santiago. They have shooting guard Jalen Solinger. They have power forward Chris Payton, who is the leading returner in offensive rating and in block percentage. They also have center Byron Hornbeek coming back, and he's the leading returner in defensive rating. So they still have some talent coming back. Also, they have an infusion of talent, and their most interesting newcomer is Reggie Bass, who was the freshman of the year in the conference, but not for Kent State. He played for Central Michigan this year, and he's a wing. So basically, Kent State, I can't see them being as strong as they were last year, but some of the pieces they return are pretty significant. So now we move on to Toledo, and they too are losing their 3 best players from last season, and that's Player of the Year Ray J. Dennis, the point guard, moved on to Baylor. JT Shoemate, who has moved on to the pros, and Seth Milner, who has also moved on to the pros. They returned Dante Maddox, who we just spoke to, Raheem Moss, who is a versatile wing, who can get you rebounds, do some playmaking, good defender. Also returning is Tyler Cochran, who was off to a good start last year and then had to be shut down due to a toe injury. Of course, we talked to Dante about incoming freshman Sonny Wilson, the point guard, and also Ben Wright, the power forward from William and Mary. And Sonny is the top recruit in the conference, or the highest rated recruit in the conference. On that same note, they also lost E.J. Farmer, who went to Youngstown State, who was a talented freshman last year, very promising freshman. So again, losing a lot, still got some pieces left, similar to Kent State. In Akron, they too lose their stud player in Xavier Castaneda. He's moved on to the pros. They, though, do bring back one of their star players in Enrique Freeman. And Enrique, basically, in terms of, the top returners in the conference, he's the top returner in rebounds per game at 11.2, blocks per game at 1.2, rebounding percentage, player efficiency rating, win shares plus minus. I mean, this guy is pretty much the heavy favorite to be player of the year. Along with all those statistics, Enrique, and let me just look here at his stats. He shot better than 61% from the field. 33% from three on very low volume and 62% from the foul line. So, interior right now is his game, inside. And the question becomes, in terms of a pro prospect, can he display a somewhat of an outside game, mainly as a shooter, to get some looks from the pros? Joining Freeman, coming back, is Greg Trimble, who's a combo guard. Nate Johnson, kind of was a sixth man last year, shot 42% from deep. Power forward Sammy Hunter also had some moments. He shot 33% from deep on pretty high volume. So he is a guy who can stretch the floor, but not ideal in terms of efficiency. But what's really interesting about Kent State is who they're bringing in, including point guard Caleb Thornton. So now keep in mind, Xavier Castaneda was probably the most valuable player on the team last year that finished third. And, Castaneda was the straw that stirred the drink. And now Caleb Thornton comes in from Northern Illinois. He was one of the better point guards in the conference. And so he transfers in conference. He is the leading returner in terms of assists per game at 5.3 and assist percentage at 34%. They also bring in freshman Darian Baker, a three-star guy, combo forward, and they bring back Ali, who transferred 1 year to Butler. But he was a really productive player when he was at Akron, kind of a Swiss Army knife, can score inside, can score outside. He had a tremendous year before he transferred to Butler, and he did not play well last year, but the year before with Akron, he shot 46% from the floor, 41% from deep, 72% from the free throw line. And he chipped in about 3 rebounds a game, about 3 assists per game. The guy is athletic. He's kind of long and lanky, 6'8". So he's going to probably be right back in the starting lineup. So when you look at this team, yes, they lose Castaneda. Yes, they lose Trendon Hankerson. But when they bring back probably the MVP candidate in Freeman, they bring back a key player from the year before. They bring back 3 players who got big minutes last year. They bring in a pretty highly regarded freshman, and they bring in a proven point guard. So yeah, lots of positives there with Akron. So we move on to Ball State, who was 4th in the conference last year. Now, the MAC, I should say, splits into two different divisions. And so what I'm doing is I kind of combine them into one, which I don't know why they don't. It's only 12 teams. So, but anyway, I combine them into one and then kind of put them in that kind of order for our purposes. But they don't bring back a lot. They lost one of their best players, if not their best player, and Peyton Sparks went to Indiana. Demarius Jacobs graduated. Jerron Coleman moves on to Nebraska. Jalen Sellers moves on to Central Florida. And Jalen Wyndham moves on to Morehead State. So the only people that they're bringing back that got significant minutes last year, or I'd say the best player they're bringing back, is one starter, and that's Mickey Pearson. Pearson's a combo forward. He's pretty efficient inside scorer, but not much of a shooter. Get you some rebounds, but he is the best player returning. The other one is Bashir Jihad. And Bashir last year, he played about 17 minutes per game. Again, didn't shoot well. Pretty good in, overall field goal percentage, but he also is a combo forward. So I'd say the best that they're bringing in at Ball State is freshman combo guard Joey Brown, 3-star guy. But really Ball is losing a lot and not gaining much. So 4 of the 5 best players are either graduated or moving on to bigger schools. So Ohio, who was one of the better offensive teams in the country, not as prolific as Toledo, but they were there. They ranked 19th in the nation in offensive efficiency, and they ranked 27th for points per game. It's 78.8. So this is a very good offensive team. And Ohio brings back just about everybody except for big guy Dwight Wilson. The key player that they bring back is point guard Jalen Hunter. He is the leading returner in the conference for steals per game at 1.8 and also steal percentage. But he is not alone. They're bringing back shooting guard Miles Brown, wing A.J. Brown, power forward A.J. Clayton, and shooting guard Elmore James. Now, out of this group, Brown was second on the team last year in minutes. He shot a nice 45% from deep on about 4 attempts per game. A.J. Brown was a decent shooter as well, on also around 4 attempts per game at 38%. Clayton, he's not nearly as efficient, but he also averaged around 4 threes per game at 32%. He's also an excellent foul shooter, so he could probably turn that around. So you get the sense there that that they're bringing back 5 guys that all played good minutes last year, and especially Hunter. And I'll talk a little bit more about Hunter. He last year, 44% from the field, 41% from deep on over 5 attempts per game, 75 from the line, 3.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists, and 1.8 steals. He's not a big guy. He's 6 foot, 6'1" maybe, and he's a senior. Super senior, actually. He was an Old Dominion transfer. But Hunter is definitely going to be one of the better players on a team that has a lot of offensive talent. Joining those guys are 2 incoming transfers from big schools, and that's combo guard Sharif Mitchell from Creighton, who you've probably seen play in the Big East, and Ike Cornish, who was kind of a 3-star, 4-star guy who went to Maryland. He's a wing with solid size. And of course, Sharif Mitchell can play some defense. He can give you some offense and playmaking. So this is a very talented Ohio team. All right. So Buffalo, one of the fastest teams in the country last year. They played at a faster pace, believe it or not, in Toledo. The second in the nation in terms of pace. And they are basically losing everybody, including their big-time scorer, Curtis Jones, who transferred to Iowa State. They're losing LaQuill Hardnett to Arkansas State. Hardnett, by the way, is power forward. Hardnett, yes, he's going to Arkansas State. And Amari Foster, point guard, graduated. Shooting guard, Yazid Powell, went to UTEP. And Isaiah Jack, a center, went to Dayton. And who's returning is Isaiah Adams, small forward, and Joe Smith, J-O, not J-O-E, Smith, who's the center. And they are the two best players returning. Adams was second team in minutes last year. He averaged about 10 points per game, had solid shooting splits, was a good rebounder. And so, yeah, he's a key player and definitely somebody you'd like to have returning. Smith is a big, doesn't really shoot from deep. He played about 18 minutes per game last year. Gave him some rebounding, some rim protection. Yeah, I don't think he's really a huge difference maker, but for a team that's hurting for players to come back. Interestingly, another 3/4-star guy is joining the team who started off with Maryland, and that's James Graham III. He played a total of 9 games for the Terrapins, but he has nice size. It's 6'8", 205, and last year he played for Missouri State. Didn't get as many minutes as I expected. He only played about 20 per game, and to be quite honest, most of his stats were not very impressive, except for his three-point shooting. On 3 attempts per game, he shot 43% from deep. Otherwise, he wasn't ultra efficient or productive, though I will say he does bring defense to a team that could use it. He can block shots and defend on the perimeter. So that's one thing I really, so Graham has potential. I mean, he's on our draft board just based on his incoming pedigree, and we've kept him around. But right now he's yet to prove it, but he does show signs of having athleticism, the shooting ability, and the ability to defend inside and out. That's why we're still keeping an eye on him. But Buffalo overall doesn't really have a lot coming back. So Northern Illinois, who was right there with Buffalo in the standings last year. And as I said before, they lose Caleb Thornton, their point guard, to Akron, and that's a big loss. But at the same time, they have some key players coming back. So the top returner, or one of the top returners, is David Coit. He's a small guard, about 6 foot. He brought in 15 points per game last year. He shot 43% from the field, 38% from deep on high volume. He also shot 87% from the free throw line. He played 34 minutes per game. He had a positive assist turnover ratio, but still was under 3 assists per game. Of course, he wasn't the primary point guard. Question is, can Coit be the point guard and still maintain those prolific offensive numbers that he did? He is the leading returner in the conference for three-pointers made. He made 81 last season, and as I said, shot 38% from deep. Another real key player that returns to them is 6'4" guard Keyshawn Williams. And Keyshawn is going into his senior year. He had last year shortened by injuries, but he was having a fine season at the time. He was averaging, at the time when he went down, almost 18 points per game on 47% from the field, on 35% from deep, 80 from the line. He was bringing in close to 5 rebounds a game, about 2.5 assists per game. And so and he gives them a shooting guard or wing, if you will, to form with Colt. And that's 2 really dynamic scorers. Northern Illinois also brings back forward Zariq Nutter and center Harvin a bargain. I bargain. I can't say this guy's name. But he is a center, and he's the leading returner in terms of field goal percentage. Last year, he shot 75% from the field. Nutter, meanwhile, was third on the team in minutes and also third on the team in scoring. Brought in 11 per game. Wasn't very efficient last year. And also was on the turnover prone side. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement for Nutter. So I think the biggest question with Northern Illinois is who's going to run the show. Colt has yet to prove that he is like an ultra efficient playmaker, but they do bring in Quaran McPherson from Nebraska, who's a 6'4" combo guard. Who's barely played in 2 seasons at Nebraska. Last year, 2 years ago, redshirted. Last year, only appeared in 1 game. But at this level, if McPherson can be a playmaker, and especially with that size at 6'4", Northern Illinois could be a team to watch with the scoring tandem of Coit and Keyshawn Williams. Next team I'm going to talk about is Miami of Ohio. They lose their best player in Mickey Larry, their leading scorer. But they do return 2 players that are all conference types. And that's Anderson Morambo, big center out of Dominican Republic, and Morgan Safford. Morambo averaged over 14 a game last year, and Safford averaged over 15 a game. Safford's a wing, had solid shooting splits, brought in 5.9 rebounds a game and 2.4 assists, 1.2 steals. Morambo isn't really a shooter, but though he's not bad from the foul line, more of an interior guy. He brought in about 6 rebounds a game, close to 3 assists per game, and about a block per game. And he played 26 minutes. So those are 2 nice pieces to build around. The problem with Miami of Ohio is they're not, at least last year, they were not a good shooting team. And their best shooter, Larry, and their leading 3-point producer, Larry, also their point guard, he was all those things, and he's gone, graduated. So what they do have, and this is interesting, and it's, whether it's going to work out, we shall see, but they bring in 1 transfer from Northern Illinois, Darwishi Hunter, who shot better than 42% from 3. And they also bring in 2 Division II stars in Bradley Dean and Bryson Buttman. Buttman's a wing. Dean is a combo guard. Dean has the most impressive stats coming in, and he also plays for a very respected program in Virginia Wise, or played for last year. So I'll just go over his statistics. Of course, these were produced in D2, but it seems like the incoming recruits were brought in to somehow give some life to the Miami of Ohio offense. So Dean last year averaged or shot 49% from the floor, 43 from deep, 83 from the free throw line, averaged 21.4 points per game, also produced 4.8 rebounds per game and 3.7 assists per game. So, as I said, these 3 players coming in, offensively minded, all can shoot the ball from 3, and their contributions are going to be key. But Miami does bring back 2 all-conference types, a few more other players, and these newcomers. So definitely should be moving in the right direction this season. I expect head coach Todd Simon's first year at Bowling Green to be a transition one. He's losing a lot of key players at Bowling Green. They lose their top 3 players in terms of minutes in Leon Ayers, wing, who will be playing in the pros somewhere, point guard Caden Matheny, who went on to Liberty, and small forward Chandler Turner, who went on to Radford. Those guys last year, Ayers averaged over 17 points per game. Matheny threw in 11 points per game, and Turner threw in 9 points per game. Ayers is probably going to be the player missed the most. As I said, he was the most talented, and will be playing in the pros somewhere. His shooting splits last year were 47 from the field, 41 from deep, 81 from the free throw line. Also chipped in 4 rebounds and three assists per game. So big loss there. Their top returners are combo guard Samari Curtis. He's not a great shooter, but he does get to the foul line a lot. He's the leading returner in free throws per game at 4 per game, and he makes his free throws at 88% rate, but he only shoots 32% from deep, at least last season. Another key returner is big man Rashawn Agee. He only played about 18 minutes per game, but he was pretty productive in those 18 minutes, averaged about 6 rebounds and a block during that time. So that's nice production for just 18 minutes per game. In terms of the transfer portal, Bowling Green does bring in some interesting players. DJ Smith, a combo guard from Little Rock, who played a lot of minutes last year as a freshman. Trey Thomas, a combo guard from Vanderbilt, who hasn't played a ton in, I believe he's 3 seasons at Vanderbilt. Saw some action last year. More so, I think he started about 1/3 of his games last year. And they also bring in Jason Spurgeon, who follows the coach from Southern Utah. And Spurgeon is a real big, true center, 6'11", 250. Last year, Southern Utah shot better than 60% from the field. He's not much of an outside shooter, but he also brought in 6 rebounds per game and nearly 2 blocks per game. So what I see for Bowling Green is they're really questionable in terms of guard play. You know, they're going to be relying on some of these new guys who, but they are going to have a sturdy front line when you throw in Spurgeon, Agee, who I mentioned, and Sam Towns, another returner who I didn't mention. But you know, between Curtis and DJ Smith, Trey Thomas, none of those guys have yet to prove that they can be knockdown shooters from deep. But if some of these guys start to hit their threes, Bowling Green might have a better season than we expect. Also, the rest of the conference, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, were pretty bad last year. And they don't really have a lot coming back or coming in. Central Michigan, I said, lost their most promising player and shooting guard Reggie Bass, who transferred. He was freshman of the year, transferred to Kent State. Eastern Michigan loses Amoni Bates to the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was second-round pick. And they also lose Noah Farrakhan, mercurial point guard, who just recently transferred to West Virginia. So Western Michigan also loses a couple of their better players, including Marquise Hastings, a forward, transferred to Robert Morris, and Lamar Norman, who graduated. He was a combo guard. So I expect the 3 Michigan schools to struggle again as they try to regain their footing. So overall in the conference, the way I see it, I like Akron to finish first. They feel pretty confident about that. I like Ohio to finish second. Again, feel pretty confident about that. Then third place, that gets to be a little more of an interesting mix. I think Kent State will be there. Toledo will be there. I think Northern Illinois and Miami of Ohio are going to work their way into that mix. So yeah, I see 4 teams, vying for that third spot. I'd give the nod to Kent State. In terms of how many teams make the NCAA tournament, as I said previously, there was talk that, maybe the MAC would get 2 teams in last year. It turned out it was only 1. When you look at the top 3 in the conference this year, which I would say would be Akron, Ohio, and Kent State, I don't see that top 3 being nearly as dominant or as talented as last year's top 3. So if they couldn't get 2 bids last year, I don't see them getting 2 bids this year. As far as MVP goes, I like Enrique Freeman. He's probably going to be the best player on the best team. Certainly an interior force in this conference. And he's also the leading returner in terms of, player efficiency rating, win shares, plus minus. So, good indication that he's the best player in this conference. So, and given that I'm predicting his team to win it all, that gives him even an extra advantage. So I'm going with Enrique Freeman as my MVP of the MAC. Last year, in the Missouri Valley, 4 teams posted a 700-plus record, or a winning percentage better than 70% in the conference. Bradley won the regular season title, followed by Drake, then followed by Southern Illinois and Belmont, who tied for 3rd. In the conference tourney, Drake, the 2 seed, upset Bradley in the conference tournament, and then they were the ones that advanced to the NCAA. They went on to face Miami of Florida and lost a close one in the first round, 63-56. And of course, we all know that Miami of Florida advanced to the Final Four. So that was a real good showing by a Missouri Valley Conference team. Bradley, on the other hand, kind of did what, as I said, a lot of these teams who kind of dominate their conference, or at least win their conference and then go on to the NIT, seem to go in there deflated. And Bradley seemed just that, and they were thoroughly thumped by Wisconsin in the first round of the NIT on the road. So in terms of offense, this conference in general is a defensive conference, kind of the opposite of the MAC. Indiana State topped the conference in terms of points per game, 79.3, which was 24th in Division I. They also led the conference in offensive efficiency. In terms of defense, there was 4 teams that allowed less than 64 points per game. Southern Illinois was the best, 61.4, 12th in the country. Bradley next, 62.7, 21st in the country. Missouri State third, 63.2 points per game, 25th in the country. And Drake fourth, 63.9, 33rd in the country. Out of that group of 4, Drake led the conference in defensive efficiency, 92.6, which was 18th best in the nation. So in terms of pace, Indiana State, not so surprisingly, led the conference in pace, while Missouri State was at the bottom, and the 7th slowest pace team in the nation, Missouri State was. Belmont topped the conference in 3-point shooting, 38.8, which was 7th in Division I, followed by Drake at 37%. Missouri State, which had some really good size, led the conference in rebounding percentage, block percentage. So Southern Illinois topped the conference in assist percentage and steal percentage. Illinois State had the worst turnover percentage, and was actually at 19.1, which was the 10th worst in the nation. Drake had the best in the conference at 13.3, which was 29th best turnover percentage in the nation. So that's why they are a highly efficient team. They don't turn the ball over. In terms of coaching changes in the conference, Roger Powell replaces Matt Allocco at Valpo. And that's the only coaching change. Pal was an assistant at Gonzaga for the last 4 years. So Valpo's looking, hopefully, that his direction can lead them in a positive direction after being one of the worst teams in the conference last year. This is a pretty deep conference this year. We'll start off talking about Bradley, who was the regular season champion, and they lose 2 key players. Rank Mast, a power forward who's heading to Nebraska, and Zeke Montgomery, a wing who's heading to Rhode Island. And what they lose in Mast is he was a guy who could score inside and outside. He was a stretch big, not a prolific stretch big. He shot 35% from deep, but he gave you 8 rebounds per game, also 2.4 assists, so he was a decent playmaker. Montgomery was the best shooter on the team, though he wasn't prolific, but in terms of percentage wise, he only averaged, 3 attempts per game, but he shot better than 42%. So those guys, their production will be missed. But what they do bring back, is some really good players, including conference, player of the year candidate, Malve Leons. He's a Dutch player, 6'10", about 215, 220. He's athletic, big. He can stretch the floor somewhat. He, last year he averaged 3.6 threes per game, made 35%, also shot 78% from the foul line. But he also can play on the inside, and he shot 47% from the floor, averaged 11 points per game, and brought down 6 rebounds, 1.5 steals per game, and 1.5 blocks per game. And Leons was the defensive player of the year, too, and the 1.5 blocks per game is the best returner to the conference. He leads the conference in that category among returners. Another big that will probably pick up some of the minutes lost by Mass going to Nebraska is Darius Hannah, a power forward who's the top returner in terms of block percentage at 7%. Also the top returner in defensive rating at 91.7. So you could figure that they bring back the defensive player of the year and the top rated defensive player. So the front line looks to be in pretty good shape. Other guys who played solid minutes last year, big minutes, were shooting guard Connor Hickman, point guard Duke Dean, and reserve wing, and forgive me on this name, I think it's Vili Tavanian, a shooting guard, pretty good shooter. And he hopefully will pick up some of the slack left by Montgomery by getting some more minutes. But what's really interesting about this Bradley team and encouraging about this Bradley team is they have quite some good amount of talent coming in through the transfer portal. That starts with combo guard Trey Pettigrew from Nevada. This is a kid, didn't play a lot as a freshman last year with Nevada, but he was a 3-4-star player. I know he was a top 150 recruit. I don't know if he was top 100, but I know he's top 150. Also, Marion Ellis, a shooting guard at Marquette, who hasn't gotten much playing time over the past 2 years, but again, another top 150 player, 3-4-star / guy. And they also get in forward Almar Atlason, somebody who really wasn't on the recruiting boards this year, but he is an incoming freshman. He's from Iceland, and he's 6'8", and he's kind of a combo forward, and I'm trying to check on his age. He's only 18, and he was very well thought of, among Europeans, among the 2004 class, which is basically how we classify people as like high school seniors, high school juniors. They do it by year, because a lot of guys go pro. So among the 2004 class, he was considered one of the best coming in. So, for example, this summer, he played in the under-20 European championships. played 7 games, played 31 minutes per game. He averaged close to 18 points per game. Shooting splits weren't ultra efficient, but he did shoot 36% from deep, 62 from the line. He averaged 6 rebounds a game, 3 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, and 0.6 blocks per game. So you can see he contributes in a lot of ways. The most disturbing number is he only shot 38% from the field in those European championships. So, but still, talented player, young player. So Bradley, basically kind of has it going on inside and out. And they have some older players and some young talent coming in. I think, how far this team goes, I think what they're going to need is either Pettigrew or Marion Ellis, one of those 2 transfers to come up pretty big. And if that happens, I think this team, could go far. So Drake, the team that advanced to the NCAAs last year and gave Miami a tussle in the first round, they are losing 3 really key players. Drake was a very veteran team last year, led by a lot of 5th-year guys, and they are losing 3 of them. In Roman Penn, their point guard, who averaged 13 points per game and close to 6 assists per game. Greg Sturtz, the unbelievably, he's like a 6'2" guard who averaged over 6 rebounds per game. He was quite phenomenal when it came to rebounding. And also DJ Wilkins, one of their better 3-point shooters, is also, all 3 of those guys are gone to graduation. What's left though, is still, they have some good talent left. They have, first of all, they have player of the year, Tucker DeVries. DeVries last year, averaged 18.6 points per game, shot 45 from the field, 37 from deep, 84 from the line, averaged 5.7 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists, 1.1 steals. So highly productive all-around player. He also, in terms of leading returners, he's the top leader returner in 3-pointers made. He had 88 last season. He also is top returner in player efficiency rating and win shares and plus minus. He gets the trifecta there. Another returner who's significant is center Darnell Brody. He is the top returner in terms of rebounding percentage. They also bring back sophomore point guard Connor Enright. Enright didn't have the greatest of freshman seasons, but I think he still was considered one of the better freshmen in the conference last year. And so they're looking for him to take another step up. And then we have Sadar Calhoun, who played 1 year in JC. He was highly sought after when he was put himself in the portal, played a couple years at Florida State, didn't quite get the minutes he wanted. Then he went to Texas Tech, got even less minutes. This guy can shoot. This guy's athletic. And he should be in line to get, major minutes for the first time in his Division I career. So it'd be interesting to see this. He's a 5th-year guy. So this is it for him. Of the transfers coming in, the one that excites me the most, it would kind of fill out the starting lineup because, picture what they have coming back, Brody at center, and then they have the wings in DeVries and Calhoun and the point guard in Enright. I think the shooting guard, a good candidate to fill that role is Army transfer Ethan Roberts. Ethan last year as a freshman at West Point had tremendous season especially for a freshman. He averaged 12.4 points per game, shot 48% from the field, 41% from deep, 85% from the free throw line, brought in 4.4 rebounds per game as well. He's a shooter and he has nice size at 6'5". So, and as you can see with those rebounds, he really can play the wing spot. So, I think Drake is going to have a solid team next year, and will be right up there again, competing for the regular season championship. Southern Illinois, one of the better teams in terms of defense in the country last year. They like to employ a style of going about 9 deep. And so not many players dominated that team in terms of minutes. They had 4 that actually got better than 22 minutes per game, and 3 of them are gone, either to graduation or transferring, including Marcus Damask, who played a whopping 35.4 minutes per game. And he was kind of Mr. Do Everything for them. He averaged 16.7 points per game. He shot, and he does it inside and out too. He 45% from the floor, 35% from deep, 88 from the line, brought in 5.8 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game, and 1.0 steals. So he was an all-conference player, and moves on to a high program in Illinois. And then, of course, their best returner in terms of minutes is Xavier Johnson, point guard. He was pretty efficient in terms of scoring, but only averaged 7 points per game last year. He didn't take a lot of shots, and more of a distributor, and somewhat turnover prone for a point guard. He had 2.7 assists per game, but also 2.1 turnovers. So that's something that needs to improve. Also coming back for Southern Illinois is power forward Clarence Rupert, who is the leading returner in terms of field goal percentage at 64.6%. Not overly excited. Southern Illinois does have some transfers coming in, but none of them overly excite me. I think this team is going to take a significant step back this season, and I don't think finishing at the top of the conference is in the cards for the Salukis. All right, so Belmont tied with Southern Illinois in the regular season for 3rd in the standings. They lose their 2 most productive players. Of course, topping the list is first-round draft pick Ben Shepard, the ultra-athletic wing, excellent shooter, averaged 19 points per game last season. They also lost Drew Freiberg to graduation. He was 2nd on the team in minutes, 3rd in scoring at 11.1 per game, ultra-efficient shooter, averaged almost 7 3-point attempts per game, and shot 46% from deep. Also a decent rebounder. But still, Belmont does bring back some interesting amount, or does bring back some key players. And topping the list is freshman of the year, Cade Tyson. And Cade Tyson is certainly a player on our draft board. He was also ultra efficient last year. The freshman of the year winner averaged 13.6 points per game, shot 49% from the floor, 42 from deep, and 86 from the free throw line. Those are excellent splits. It's a good rebounder at 4.6 boards per game. Also had 1 steal per game. This kid, it goes about 6'7", 210 pounds. So he has good size for a wing. Definitely going to be a star in this conference sooner rather than later. They also return 2 key guards, Keyshawn Davidson and Jacoby Gillespie. Gillespie is they're both point guards, by the way. Gillespie is the returning player to lead the conference in assist percentage and steal percentage. Davidson and Gillespie were both played over 22 minutes per game last year. Davidson is slightly bigger. He's about 6'2". He was the better shooter of the two. He shot 35% from deep, 88 from the foul line. Also, 4.4 assists per game and only 2 turnovers per game. Gillespie was not efficient from three, only 30%. But as I said, in just 22 minutes per game, he produced 3.3 assists, 1.5 steals per game. So per minute, that's excellent. So basically what this team lacks, especially with another player, Evan Bronze, moving on to their center from last year, moving on to Iowa, they really lack size. And their one bright spot in their recruiting is they get Malik Dia from Vanderbilt. Now, Dia goes 6'9", 245. He's a big kid. Last year as a freshman, he played in 20 games for Vanderbilt. Wasn't ultra productive, but overall, but he can stretch the floor, can rebound, can block some shots. So I think he's going to probably be a key player in that front court for Belmont. So Belmont doesn't have a lot of depth, but with Davidson and Gillespie in the backcourt, Tyson at the wing, and if Dia comes through up front, they could have a really solid, good starting lineup. Indiana State, who finished 5th in the conference last year, loses their 3 most productive players. Corvair, McCauley, Cooper Neese, Cameron Henry. Those guys went 1, 2, and 3 in minutes played. They also went 1, 2, and 3 in points per game. All of them averaged at least 11 points. McCauley was top the team at 16 points per game. All 3 also were good 3-point shooters. Both Neese and McCauley shot at least 38% from deep. Those guys will be missed on what was the highest scoring team in the conference. So those backcourt players are going to be hard to replace. They do have one returner, combo guard Julian Larry. He was an ultra productive player in not limited minutes, but he didn't start all the time. He's more like a 6-man type. And in 26 minutes per game, he had excellent shooting splits. 59% from the floor, 46% from deep, and 82% from the free throw line. However, he only averaged 7 points per game. And in terms of assists, he was pretty productive. 3.3 assists on only 2 turnovers per game. Not an ideal assist turnover ratio, but not bad. So this Julian Larry is going to be asked to do more. He's going to ask to be put up more shots and also probably boost up those assists too. You'd like to see him at around 4 per game and get into double-digit scoring. Another piece that can help in the backcourt is transfer Ryan Conwell from Southern Florida. He's a 6'4" shooting guard. He, as a freshman last season with Southern Florida, he started 13 games, played in 32 overall. He wasn't ultra efficient as a 3-point shooter, but he's a good foul shooter. Can produce in terms of rebounds, steals, assists. In fact, he was a really good passer for an incoming freshman. So he has the ability to probably play some combo guard. So the backcourt should be in decent hands. In terms of the front court, the best returning player is sophomore Robbie Avila. Now, Robbie last year, he too was only a freshman, and an impressive freshman at that. And he is the conference's leading returner in terms of offensive rating at 123.8. He's a big kid, 6'10", 240, was really efficient from the field at 54%, could stretch the court a little bit at 34%. He took almost 3 threes per game, only played 21 minutes per game. So this kid can shoot 71 from the free throw line. That's not bad. Can block some shots. It's not a great rebounder or shot blocker for his size, but still, will give them an inside presence and also be a danger for, on the outside. So I think, Indiana State is, losing their 3 most productive, players in terms of minutes and scoring. It's going to be hard for them to maintain their spot, at 5th place in the standings. But they do have some young talent still around. So it should be interesting. So next up is Missouri State. And as I mentioned, they were one of the more productive teams in terms of dominating in the paint, like being one of the top team in rebounding percentage, block percentage. One of the reasons for that is Jonathan Magobo, and he is gone this year. The center is moving on to Southern Florida. So he was didn't add much in the shooting department, but was ultra efficient from the field, 59%. Also chipped in 7 rebounds and 1.1 blocks per game. Also 1.3 steals per game. So his defense, his rebounding, is going to be missed. A couple other players that they will be losing as notable as Kendall Moore, moved on, the combo guard, moved on, graduated, on a team that really struggled to make threes. He was one of their best, if not the best, 3-point shooter on the team. Fortunately, he only shot about 34%. So that's just telling you that this team definitely needs to get some more 3-point shooting. Another player they lost was forward James Graham, who I mentioned in the MAC preview, who transferred to Buffalo, though he wasn't a huge contributor for this team. What they get back is 4-star recruit Chance Moore, who is starting to come into his own here in Missouri State and is probably ready for a breakout season. 6'6", 205, last year as a sophomore, played 22 minutes per game, averaged 10.6 points per game, brought in 3.9 rebounds, also very good in the steals department and the block department, especially when you throw in the per game averages. He needs to improve his shooting, only shot 34% from deep and only shot 61% from the foul line. But this kid has potential. He was originally an Arkansas recruit, didn't get much playing time there as a freshman, then came on to Missouri State. So he is ready for a breakout season. And if he can, start converting his free throws and his threes at a higher clip, we could be looking at an all-conference type player. Speaking of all conference type players, Missouri State already has one in forward Donovan McClay. And this kid's kind of a point forward. He does most of his damage in and around the paint. He shot 47% from the field last year, only 30% from deep and only 67% from the foul line. But he brought in 5.5 rebounds, 3.6 assists per game, also a block per game. He goes about 6'8", 230, good size. So an ultra productive stat sheet stuffing guy. Again, if he can add some shooting, you have quite the player here. He is a 5th-year senior, so this is it for him. Also returning is Alton Mason, combo guard, who probably will run the point this year. He was second on the team last year in assists behind Donovan Clay, who we just talked about. So he will be leading the point. Incoming through the portal are 2 really interesting players. Number 1 is former 4-star Cesar Edwards, a center from Xavier, played 2 years at Xavier, but this saw sporadic playing time. You could probably pencil him right in to start at center. And then we have Tyler Bay, who is considered a 3-star recruit. Now, remember, he played at Overtime Elite. I got to see him play some when scouting other players. I was impressed with his energy, his rebounding, and his defense. So he is a combo forward. He's rated in the composite rankings on 247 at number 156. I really think he's more of a top 100 player than a top 200 player. So basically, what you have in Missouri State, you're going to have a big team, a lot of front court options, but right now the not much shooting, and the only, obvious backcourt starter is Alton Mason. Missouri State is a team definitely to watch this year. Always known for their guard play. They should have excellent play in the guard from the guard position this season. Their top 3 players in terms of minutes last year are back, and that includes point guard Jacoby Wood, shooting guard Rob Perry. They also, off the bench, 2 really productive shooters in reserve roles last year, Brian Moore and Quincy Anderson, both of whom shot better than 37% from deep last year return. And the team also adds freshman Laurent Rice, a combo guard who's a top 200 recruit. So plenty of options. Wood is interesting at the point guard position in terms of conference leaders returning. He's the leading returner in terms of assists per game at 4.6 and steals per game at 1.5. Perry chipped in last year a team leading 14 points per game. Could be a little better from 3. He's only 34% from 3, but not bad. They also get back forward Jamari Smith, who was 45% from the field, 33% from deep. Give you some rebounding, defense. He's one of the bigger bodies that is returning, and that's going to be the problem for Murray State is they don't have a lot of size returning. They lost DJ Burns to Youngstown State. He was an efficient inside scorer and rebounder. They also lose forward Kenny White to Tennessee Martin. So can Murray State find some size to complement their great guards? If you combined Murray State with Missouri State, with Missouri State's heavy front court and Missouri's heavy back court, you'd have quite the team, but it just doesn't work that way. All right, the last team I want to mention in the conference that has a chance to be competitive and be in the upper half of the standings is Northern Iowa. They basically don't lose anyone of significance. They return their top 3 scorers. They return their top 4 guys in terms of minutes played. And their most notable returners, I would say, would be Bowen Bourne, combo guard. He was one of the better shooters on the team, shot 37% from deep, averaged 18 points per game. Part of that's because he got to the foul line 5.2 times per game, converted, made 4.3 free throws per game, which is he's the leading returner in the conference in that department. Also shot 84% from the free throw line. They also return Tylen Anderson, who is the conference's leading returning rebounder, and he's only like a 6'2", 6'3" guard. He averaged 8.5 boards per game last year, along with 1.8 assists and 1.4 steals. Second leading scorer on the team at 12.6. The third leading scorer on the team was freshman Michael Duax. He's kind of a scrapper, blue collar guy, hustle guy, tough guy. Not much of a shooter right now, but he was very efficient from the floor last year at 57%. So those guys make up basically the backcourt, Bourne, Anderson, and Duax. Now, front court, that's a different story where this team is going to get production. I think their best option is incoming transfer Jacob Hudson, a 6'11", 240 center from Loyola Chicago. Only played in 3 seasons at Loyola. He's now a senior. Only played 639 minutes. Career-wise, he's been efficient from the floor, 54%. It's been not a lot of attempts from 3, but it's been very efficient when he's taken those at 41%. Not good from the free throw line, 53%. But this is a big body. It's going to give you some boards, block some shots, and this is the type of thing that this team needs to be competitive. The rest of the league, Illinois State, Valpo, Illinois Chicago, Evansville, they're probably losing more than they're gaining. I will say Ben Creaky, he is power forward for Valpo, was their best player last year. He is moving on to Iowa. Illinois State is losing their best player in Seneca Knight. He went on to graduation. Illinois Chicago is losing their best player in Jace Carter. However, they are also getting in some interesting transfers, including Isaiah Rivera, a wing from Colorado State, and Marcus Kennedy, a longtime combo guard for Illinois Chicago. And I think Rivera, with his all-around balanced game, I think he has a very good shot at being an all-conference type player in the Missouri Valley. So in terms of predictions, I have to give the nod to Bradley over Drake. I think it's going to be close, and I think it's possible that these two teams could really separate themselves from the field. But I'm gonna give the nod to Bradley. I kind of like that they have a little more depth, a little more balance. I like some of the newcomers, which are, high level. They're coming from high level programs and, top 100, top 150 type players. Plus, Malve Leons, has a chance to, be player of the year. So that's my choice. The fight for third, could involve a lot of teams. I think, I think the best bet for third place is between Northern Iowa, Missouri State, Murray State, and Belmont. All these teams have significant flaws, but they also all have significant strengths. So I think that will be the fight for third. Can this team get more than one team in the tournament? I think that's possible. I think if Bradley and or Drake is really dominant in the conference and only suffers a handful of losses, then they get upset in the conference tourney, they still might get an invite. That's their non-conference schedule is going to play a big role in that. And unfortunately, a lot of these small mid-major conferences don't play a lot of big games out of conference. And I hope that they're starting to learn, as it seems to me, but the selection committee and the computer rankings, they really respect more so if you lose a close game to a good team, say like an Arkansas, than if you beat up some team like, Abilene Christian, by 40. I think it's better to lose a close game to a good team than it is to beat the crap out of a team that's not very good. But if, let's say, I don't know, Drake only loses 5 games on the season, and one of those in one of their victories is a non-conference victory over a decent team, like an Arkansas or Texas A&M or something like that. I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but they still might get an invite. But right now, I'm going to just go with one team making it into the tournament, and of course that would be my pick to win the conference, Bradley. I think in terms of player of the year, I think Tucker DeVries, has to be the favorite. Of course, he won it last year, went over his stats, really impressive. I've mentioned a couple times that Malve Leons Bradley, their power forward center, will probably be in the running. And I think another player to keep an eye on is sophomore Cade Tyson. Rookie of the year last year, probably not ready to make the jump to player of the year. But I think if he's not in the running this year, he'll be in the running next year. So that's definitely a player to keep an eye on. So that wraps up our show. I'm sorry Jake couldn't finish with this down the stretch, but I enjoyed. I hope you didn't grow tired of listening to me. I'm sorry that it was just me, but had to do what we had to do. So as always, I want to thank all our listeners, and I want to thank our two special guests for joining us this week. And if you ever miss an episode, you can get caught up on hoopsprospects.com. You can also, if you would like to participate in the mailbag, send us a question, have it read on air. You can email it to admin@hoopsprospects.com. We also take questions via social media on Twitter @hoopsprospects, on Instagram @thehoopsprospects, and on Facebook @hoopspros. So we'll be back right after Labor Day to do another show. That's going to be a preview that will include previews of the American Conference, the Atlantic 10, and Conference USA. Plus, we'll have a new college hoops notebook and a new NBA notebook. So there'll be a lot to cover when we get back after Labor Day. So we'll see you soon, folks.